and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the Next Gen Racing Front-Wheel Drive Fridays Clio Cup Series, as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform, available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today, we take a look back at all the racing action from round 6 of 8 in the Championship that continues to ask the question, who is the master of managing understeer in the Clio Cup machine? Of course, our drivers racing in the 5th generation French machine, which has been popular throughout the years for generating close Cup Club racing. But the question is, on iRacing, of course, is how well can you take to a car that naturally wants to run off the circuit if you apply too much power, but it's got plenty of corner availability to it, and therefore it's all about finding that balance between turning and nailing the apex versus getting back to full throttle as soon as possible corner exit. And as our drivers make their way into this round, they'll be taking on a circuit which is long lost but never forgotten. It is the Australian circuit of Oran Park Raceway. Of course, we are taking a trip back in time today, with the circuit being closed as of 2010 and converted into housing estates, but in its heyday, it was the circuit that would draw major crowds to it each year, with domestic and international series, including the likes of the V8 Supercar Championship, taking it to its venerable asphalt. With 12 flying corners across its Grand Prix circuit, which our drivers will be tackling today, it is a circuit like no other when it comes to flow, with all corners line up into quick succession, and on top of that as well, a crossover, which is rare to most circuits. There's only a limited number in the world which see the circuit go over the top or underneath itself, but our drivers will be joining the Grand Prix circuit of old, and we'll have to wait and see who has got the spirit of Australia behind them as they take to the circuit and look to score big points for the championship campaign coming towards its closure. But as we get ready to go racing tonight, we do remind you that this is a post-round broadcast. And what does that mean in layman terms? Well, the racing itself occurred as of last week. It occurred on what was, if my memory serves me correctly, Friday the 19th of May, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live this Wednesday, the 24th of May, 2023. But as your host and commentator, I do not know what happens in the practice, the qualifying, or the race sessions, with there being 3 races on our schedule. We'll go into those very shortly, so therefore this is going to be as close as possible to the raw live experience for you guys and girls tuning in at home. And indeed, for me in the commentary booth, it'll be the same. And we do, of course, ask if you did participate in the races and you are tuning in right now, you just happen to know the results, can you please avoid any spoilers in the chat for those who are uninitiated at home? And we welcome you as you tune in, of course, because this broadcast is being brought to you live via one of 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, you may be tuning in via the 2 official Next Gen Racing platforms. They include YouTube, if you go to youtube.com and search for Next Gen Racing. Alternatively, they do include Facebook. If you go to facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing, you'll be tuning in there. Or lastly, you may also be tuning in via Twitch, and that'll be via twitch.tv/TX141. And who is TX141, I hear you ask? Well, allow me to introduce myself as your host and commentator. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit of the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Now we bring you all your racing action tonight, and indeed for the entirety of the series. And speaking of tonight, our schedule for tonight is as follows. Times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1. In just under 12 minutes time, we're making our way in to our qualifying session. 15 minutes in duration with all our drivers out of the circuit. It's going to be quite crowded, with 16 cars expected to take to the circuit today, and who's going to go away with pole position in the Pro and the Pro-Am classes. After that, we'll make our way immediately to the first race grid. The grid will line up as of 8:30 this evening, and it'll be a 15-lap race. And our first race today, all races will be 15 laps in duration, amounting to approximately 20 minutes of racing action. Now we race number 1. After that, we'll take a brief breather before returning for the build-up to race number 2 at what will be 9 o'clock this evening. And then we take another breather after that one before returning for the reverse grid race, race number 3, kicking off at approximately 9:30, and another 15 laps to wrap up proceedings here in Australia. And well, it is an absolutely highly anticipated race, given the fact this is a circuit that brings a lot of nostalgia in amongst our drivers, given the fact it no longer exists in the real world, but thanks to iRacing we're able to relive its former days and enjoy it to the maximum. And speaking of the calendars and the season, well, let's take you through our calendar thus far and what we've still got lying in wait after today. Well, as we can see, we started off all the way back on the 7th of April at the British circuit of Brands Hatch, Indy. It may have been short, but it hit hard and fast. And in the county of Kent in the United Kingdom, we got to see our championship campaign get off to a stellar start. And it was Chris Daines who really laid down the foundations there in the Pro class and overall. A week later, in round number 2, we made our way to Laguna Seca Raceway in the United States of America. And the California County circuit on the 14th of April did not hold back with the racing action. And in particular, right at the front of the field between the 2 pro drivers of Chris Daines and Adam Delmont, who battled lap after lap and race after race, and eventually Adam Delmont was able to find a way alongside, but now was completely able to get underneath the skin of Chris Daines. And then at Oran Park on the 21st of April, the story continued in the United Kingdom, where there we saw the rise of the DCW racing driver of Ian Manners in particular, and also Mikey Pollard started to announce himself on the scene in round number 3, and then we made our way back to United States or America for round number 4 at Lime Rock Park, and there in the shorter and sweet circuit on the 28th of April, we got to see our drivers really push forward with some brilliant battling at Lime Rock Park, and it really concluded the end of the first half of the season on the ultimate high. After a break week, we returned as of last round in round number 5 on the 12th of May for the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben, and whilst we saw our drivers take to the shorter variant of the circuit, the National B layout, or the B course is also known, the German circuit did not disappoint with close battles, and in particular we saw the rise of the Doble brothers who made the way on around there, and also Phil McDougall getting stuck in the Pro-Am class. And today, of course, the racing on the 19th of May was at Oran Park Raceway in Australia. After this round, we've got 2 rounds to go, and in round number 7 on the 26th of May, we're making our way back to United Kingdom for the Silverstone National Circuit, and that is definitely going to be a tense one. You normally do see the National Circuit being deployed in British Touring Car Championship, and we're going to be seeing the Clio Cup machines make their way around the short layout of the circuit, where it's extended straights and sweeping corners and not holding anything back. And then in the season finale, it is going to be Watkins Glen International on the 2nd of June 2023, and we bring the curtain down there in the US state of New York, and what a thrill it will be to conclude. It will be Clio's meets NASCAR, in the fact our drivers will be taken to one of the highest average lap speed circuits in the world, where it's heavily cambered corners and weaving corners with that and extended straights. It's all going to be about the slipstream and who's the boldest on the brakes and carrying the speed into the next corner. So still plenty in store, but we're definitely in the second half of the season now, and well, let's take you through those championship standings after 5 rounds of racing. We start off with the Overall Drivers' Championship, and we should point out that the Pro Championship has now been discarded, and we have aligned our championship standings with that of the NXTCC, whereby there will be an Overall Drivers' Championship and a Pro Drivers' Championship, but the Pro Class Championship has been discarded, and the focus is on the Overall Championship now for our pros. And as we can see here, Adam Delmont leading the way, leading pro and leading driver overall on 307 points, with quite a significant advantage over Lee Holmes now, extending into the region of 81 points between the two of them. And what that effectively means between the pair now is that Adam Delmont is the favourite to take the championship crown, albeit can Lee Holmes find a way to strike back tonight and strike back significantly to try and make things go all the way to the season finale. Time is running out for the field to keep Delmont at bay. Chris Daines, meanwhile, in P3, retired from the season a few rounds ago, but we do wish him all the best due to personal circumstances, and he stays there in P3 for now, with the leading prime of Mikey Pollard moving into P4, with Mikey Pollard right now seemingly unstoppable for DCW Racing, and really putting the pace down and battling it with the front of the field and trying to take wins overall, not just in the prime class at 197 points. Shane Piggott in P5 on 184 points, finds himself only 13 points off of Pollard, but 14 points clear of Ian Manners, and will be wary of the second DCW racing driver in the Pro-Am class, who's looking to try and get back inside the top 5 tonight. Jamie Dory in P7 on 138 points, between a rock and a hard place and a bit of a no man's land, in the fact that he is currently 32 points off of Manners, and in return he is at the margin of what is their 51 points clear of Phil McDougall. And the Pro-Am driver from CXR Project Black, well, we all know and love him. He has a way to sneak moves on drivers, and will in P8 currently. He's there just ahead of Matthew Addy, who's on 85 points, and Reece Saunders completes your top 10 from Team Year 1 on 73. Outside the top 10 by a single point there in P11, it's Michael Lease, the Pro-Am driver, who is ahead of Mark Sykes by 4 points there, and then Gavin Garner, Adam McNally, and Lee Horn complete your top 15, with Craig Jones in P16, the Pro-Am driver, 2 points clear of Mikey Doble, and it's Daniel Fritz on 32 points, only ahead of Tim Ritton based on result countback, and at home territory today for Fritz, and it's Mark Cadwell completing the top 20 on 31 points. Outside the top 20 from 31 points, we go down to 10 points in the form of Glenn Humberstone, with Dan Skinner just behind based on result countback, and it's Roger Morton and Darren Hills who complete the drivers who've got points to their names. Meanwhile, drivers yet to score points: Thomas Delaney, Steve Howe, Simon Robson, Mark Arrowsmith, Josh Brown, John Higgins Jr. and Carl Jacquelette. And I'm pleased to announce that John Higgins Jr. will be making his debut today in the Pro class. We look forward to seeing the privateer on circuit. Now going on to the Pro-Am class standings meanwhile, and here we focus on all the results of the Pro-Am drivers, and they are revised according to where they finished in their class in each and every round. Ian Manners leads the way by 16 points over Mikey Pollard, but the key factor here is the two DCW racing drivers are 1-2, but we could be seeing a flip in the standings now, with Pollard continuing to ride a wave of momentum that's never left him since Oran Park, and if he's able to put together 3 strong results to stay ahead of Manners, then we will see Pollard take the lead with 2 rounds to go. Meanwhile, outside the top 2, Matthew Addy battling for best of the rest in P3. Only 4 points clear Phil McDougall, and that rivalry continues. And we'll see both of them out of the circuit today and looking to lock horns, with Mark Sykes only a further 5 points behind and Michael East a further 18 off. It means that at the moment we've got plenty to look out for, whether it be the lead of the Prime class, alternatively the battle for P3 in said class, and then Lee Horn a further what is 25 points behind. He finds himself between a rock and a hard place. It's the hard charge after what is the remainder of the top 6, but in return he's also got to try and stay clear by 29 points or more of Craig Jones in P8, with Daniel Fritz and Mark Cadwell completing your top 10. 1 point outside the top 10, it's Tim Rutten on 77 points, with an advantage of 16 points over Darren Hills, and then Isaac Doble, Roger Morton and Dan Skinner complete your top 15, with Alex Meredith in P16, 3 points clear of Lewis Benny, and it's Mark Harris Smith and Simon Robson who complete your prime standings. But as we come from our standings then to our circuit for today, well, it's the Oran Park Raceway Grand Prix layout, where there have been multiple layouts to this circuit, and located originally near the town of Narellian in the New South Wales county of Australia. It is a circuit that's fast, it's challenging, and its 12 corners are venerable and venerated in history. As we can see from the circuit map provided us by iRacing.com, thank you to them for the wonderful simulator, and with it the brilliant track maps that come. As our drivers make the way around here, that we live in the corners of old, including famous names such as Champion Curve at turn number 4, Momo Corner at turn number 9, and Recaro Corner at turn number 12. As they charge down the start finish straight, they'll find it's the longest straight on the circuit, and really the only place where slipstream assisted passing will prove providential, as otherwise it's all about getting the speed out of the corner and batting your way into the next one. For as they head into the sweeper at turn number 1, exactly what it says on the tin, it's a sweeping left-hander. And it sets our drives up for the braking zone to Coca-Cola corner at turn number 2. They're very tight on the initial apex. It's a double apex left-hander that rolls our drives out up towards Shell corner, going underneath the Yokohama Bridge and into the braking zone for turn number 3. And you'll notice here we have gradual right-angle corners at turn 3, and then Champion Kernan for turn number 4. And then we've got the kink of 5 before our drives make their way over Yokohama Bridge, and the circuit starts to speed up. Average lap speed starts to climb as they go through the right-hander at turn number 6, sweeping on through, and then into Foster's dip at turn 7 into 8, but rolling the car up towards Momo Corner. Next, the charge all the way down towards Recaro via the O'Brien aluminum dog end. Not dog end, my apologies, dog leg, I should say. And as they come down through 10 and 11, they'll be breaking their way in towards Recaro Corner at turn number 12 to complete the lap and do it all over again. It's fast, it's intense, and with a lap time around here of just over 1 minute 15 seconds, we can expect plenty of battling action from start to finish. But who is going to be the one who stands tall come the end of it? That'll be the challenge. As we come to our rules then, we just remind you that this is a fixed setup series where our drivers are required to load a specific setup as provided by NXTGEN Racing ahead of each and every round. Driver class wise, these were finalised as of round number 3, and any newcomers to the series will be automatically put into the Pro class by default, and their class will be adjusted based on their performance on their initiating round. And sprint race wise, the race 1 grid shall be set based on the results of qualifying, that's a given. The race 2 grid shall be set based on the results of race number 1, so the winner of race 1 starts on pole for race 2, and we work our way down the finishing positions from race 1 to set the grid. And then the race 3 grid shall be a partial or reverse grid based on the results of race 2, with the finishing positions at the top half of the grid being reversed. So that means with 16 drivers in attendance today, we will see the top 8 inverted, and therefore that means the 8th place finisher in race number 2, well, they'll be starting on pole for race number 3. Meanwhile, the winner of race number 2 starts P8 for race number 3, and then from 9th downwards, that's exactly where they'll start on the grid for race 3, given that's where they finished in race number 2. Now, in each race, each driver shall have 2 faster pairs available, and each race shall conclude after either the allotted lap amount of 15 laps or 30 minutes, whichever is passed initially, and we are expecting it will be the lap amount unless we see multiple safety cars or extended safety cars. So of course we do have a safety car on standby if we need to deploy it. But as we head back to our live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, we are only minutes away from going into qualifying, and fastest man out of the circuit currently, well, you know and love him, he's the DCW Racing prime charger of Mikey Pollard in the 73, as he makes his way down the start finish straight. We're minutes to go in this final practice session, and currently 3/10 faster than anybody else out there. Could Pollard today really stick it in with regards to multiple wins, not just in class but overall, given the pace he's demonstrated here? Well, of course, practice is not always an indicator of how qualifying and the race day is going to go, but it is a sign of what is potentially to come, and Pollard looking extremely quick out there. But as he heads on around, of course, we do have John Higgins Jr. joining as of today, and the privateer currently in the pit lane, albeit not in his class, so we can't see him out of the circuit, but we'll will see him out there when we go into qualifying. There's no doubt about that, as Matthew Addy meanwhile makes his way through the final corner. Ricardo cornering onto the start for the straight uphill left-hander with that exit wall there, with all the grazing and bruising on that wall where cars have made contact with it over multiple years. And as Addy makes his way across the start for the straight and down towards turn number 1, well, he'll be lifting off there as he does let on through. I do believe that was Shane. Well, no, that was Shane Piggott. That was one of the 88 Tech cars, but Shane Piggott behind. They're going a little bit faster as they make their way onto another lap, but they'll never get to complete this lap as the checker flag comes out on this practice session, and it's time for us to enter qualifying. And we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, as we do need to do a little bit of safety measure to make sure the results are not revealed. We'll be back within 30 seconds. And as we immediately make our way back onto the screen and into qualifying, well, it's 15 minutes and away we go. Who's going to come out on top come the end of it? And let's find out. And just to explain for the uninitiated why we briefly do have to cut away and then return going into qualifying, because we are looking back at the racing rather than this being brought to you live from circuit side. It does mean that we have a risk on an iRacing replay file, which we are using to be able to see all the footage. We have that risk whereby as we transition from practice into qualifying, the qualifying times that were set at the end of the session could just appear at the timing tag at the start of the session. And that's the last thing we want to see, of course. We want to see those qualifying times come in the order they did appear, and it keeps us in suspense all the way through. And, well, thankfully, our little workaround does enable us to avoid that scenario. But as we see Jamie Dory making his way across the Yokohama Bridge and now down and through and up towards turn number 9, well, let's say hello to a good number of you in the chat, including there in the YouTube chat in particular, Phil McDougall, who's waving his hands and saying nice cover up. And indeed, and now a house of the state, and having a little bit of a joke there with the fact we did refer to the dog leg of turns 10 and 11 as a dog end. Indeed, I don't know why I've got cigarettes on the brain. Dog end, of course, being used to refer to a used cigarette in the United Kingdom as a bit of London slang, if I remember correctly, based on my upbringing. But we say hello to Phil McDougall and also to Arctic 2 Gaming, waving his hands as well. Great to have you on board. And if you haven't said hello in the chat, and perhaps you're a little bit shy, or you haven't had the chance to say hi yet, well, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi. We don't bite here at NXTGEN Racing. Everybody's welcome, whether it be on circuit or tuning in, and we're all the more happy to have you with us today, as we do see Manners and Pollard making their way across the timing line here. And interestingly, that Pollard's going to lead the pair. I think they are going to try to work together in this qualifying session, a bit of slipstream assistance over the lap. And what can we expect here in terms of this qualifying? Well, slipstream could prove quite important around here, particularly in the second half of the lap when we start to see that average lap speed build up and you've got a little bit more time between the corners. But given in the opening at 6 corners, so all the way up to the exit out Yokohama Bridge, the corners come thick and fast, and also they're very low speed in terms of their average apex speed compared to the latter half of the lap. It does mean that slipstream's not going to really help you in the first half of the lap. If anything, it will hinder you a little bit on turning, because whilst these cars are not overly aerodynamic compared to, say, a GT3 class machine, they do punch a hole in the air, which the cars behind can follow. And of course, when you follow the hole that's being created down a straight, you'll be gaining time in the draft. But the converse is true in the fact that when you're running behind one of those cars going on through a corner where you do feel a bit of dirty air off of the car in front, and that does invoke a little bit of extra understeer, which can catch you out, as we do see there Ian Manners almost taking the trip off the road at turn number 11 as he comes on. In fact, that was turn at number 9 as he comes through 10 and 11 and into the braking zone for turn at number 12 he goes. And as he does, Daniel Fritz meanwhile tucking in behind here and trying to see what the DCW Racing chaps are all about, as the number 31 driver makes his way up to speed here and in towards the braking zone very shortly. 3 minutes complete on this time on the qualifying session already. We've still got another 12 minutes to go. That shows you how quickly time can go. And as he breaks his way into turn at number 1, well, for Daniel Fritz here on the anchors once again, already for Whiskey Runners Racing, and it is currently P8 there, albeit he's still got plenty more time to try and improve. Fastest man so far after 1 lap on the board is the 88 Tech Racing driver in the 35 car of Lee Holmes, and Holmes right now, what is 2 tenths clear of Mikey Pollard, your fastest prime driver, P2. So I think we might be seeing a little bit of a sortie between the pair for that pole position, or at least the front row of the grid, although I say that Adam Delmont only a further, what is their 700ths out. And well, as we do look to your pro and overall championship leader of Adam Delmont in the number 37 car, rolling his way out to turn at number 9 there and down towards 10-11 he goes. Will very shortly be jumping on board with Delmont for a flying lap of the Oran Park Raceway Grand Prix circuit, and we'll head on to the brakes once again for Ricardo corner, getting in nice and late on the apex there, and the return to full throttle as soon as he possibly can. We charge on out and we jump on board here for a reference lap. So making his way down towards turn at number 1, keeping the car over to the right-hand side, given it is an open left-hand of the sweeper. Up in 5th gear, getting ready to try and push it all the way up to the maximum RPM. And going into left in, lifting off the throttle, straighten the car up, and then onto the brakes for turn number 2, all the way down to 2nd gear. Connect the two apexes together, power out, and now bring the car under the bridge and over to left for turn number 3. Looking to his brake marker, looking at the tyre barrier on the left-hand side there, and braking down from 4th gear to 2nd. Coming in a little bit too early there towards the apex, so you notice he had to reset the car after clipping the apex curve, or braking his way into turn number 4. Nicely hooked up there, 3rd gear, use all the road width on exit. Now over the rise he goes to the kink of 5, and across the Yokohama bridge for going through the kink of 6 here, all the way through the right-hander, and now we'll start to see the lap speed build up. Into turn number 7, holding 4th gear as he brings it through the right into left, as he heads up the hill towards Momo Corner now, onto the brakes from 4th gear. He'll stay there. No, in fact, he drops to 3rd and coming out to left hand and now into the dog leg as he comes through right into left here, turns 10 to 11. Blind summit there, 11 as he comes on down and onto the brakes now for a car at turn number 12, down to 3rd gear. Clears the corner, stamps back on the throttle as close as possible to that exit wall as he dares to go, and that is a lap of the Oran Park Raceway brought to you by Adam Delmont, and well, not an improvement there. Delmont still trying to find a bit more time as Mikey Polo in fact has gone provisional pole overall on a 15.330. That's a 10th faster than Lee Holmes' previous pole time, and by comparison Adam Delmont 4 tenths off of that. So right now it really is a game of playing catch up for a lot of our drivers here, as we are waiting for some drivers to still get laps on the board, including Phil McDougall, who's out then just about to come to the end of a lap. He's got the 2.23 in front of him, Darren Ills, who he's trying to siphon a little bit of straight line speed off of as he heads across the line, and that's his first lap on the board for Phil McDougall at 22.467. I think he'll feel as though that is not representative of the time he's bringing to the table here. I think that may have just been a sighting lap, which we have got on our time in tower, but more is to come from him, the CXR Project Black Machine. But Darren Ills, meanwhile, making his way through turn number 2 and up towards 3. And into the braking zone he goes here, and as he does, of course, you have the car behind, but you can't let that get on his mind. It is, of course, the scenario in qualifying whereby the driver in front has the initiative if they are on a flying lap, and the driver behind has to be respectful of that, and I'm sure McDougall will be thinking about that as he closes up more and more, coming through turn number 4, and up the rise of 5 they go. But you can see here, it's a major elevation change in a short period of time, and then they start to plummet the way down up, as we can see Ills moving his way aside there, and I think noticing that McDougall was going to be coming on through, and Ills in return decided just to let him go to avoid any potential confrontation between the two of them out of the circuit. And given the fact he has got over half the qualifying session still to go, and he can just do another lap to burn some extra fuel, he's not going to mind that one too much. But meanwhile, heading across the timeline, Michael at least currently on what is a 16.84 and will P11 overall, P6 in the Pro-Am class. Still half the session to go or thereabouts, and grafting his way into turn number 2 as he comes on through the left-hander. Still trying to find a bit more time out there, and that time is not coming for Lees at the moment. McNally now puts it down to P12 overall. Adam McNally going at P11 was 16.779, and the lap time for McNally not really inside the top 10. He is currently 1.5 tenths outside the top 10 and trying to find that time as soon as possible. But for McNally, indeed, many a driver here, it does look as though quite a few are struggling with finding the lap time at the moment, and perhaps it will come later on in the session. Perhaps they just need to get a bit more fuel out the car. Some drivers may feel a little bit more comfortable with a low fuel car compared to those who are able to hit it immediately out of the box. But as we do continue to watch Lees rolling his way out towards turn number 9, keeping it smooth through there and not falling off the road, which we saw Manners almost do earlier on. But heading up through the dog leg now, through the left into right at 10, into 11, and down he goes in towards turn number 12. Well, we are expecting some potential battling into this final corner in the races. Again, how close the drives may follow one another, but Lee's heading towards the timeline, and we improved in subsector 1. He has not improved elsewhere on this lap. In fact, he does improve in the final subsector, and that's P10 on 16.560. We do have quite a few drivers into the pits, but meanwhile, one driver still out there and not opting to come to the pits yet. Martin Tilling from Tiki Simsport as he comes through turn number 3, 4, and up towards 5 he goes, and as he clears the right-hand kink over the Yokohama Bridge. And Martin Tilling, of course, making his debut last time out in Germany at the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben and enjoying the racing there. Got quite a bit of elbows out action in the number 4 car, and back in the full swing of things today as he comes on down towards the end of the lap, albeit he's got a clear turn number 9 first. currently P4 out there on an out lap and getting himself set up for another flying lap. And I think Tillin may be feeling as though things are going his way thus far, given that he is 3 3/4 attempts off of the pole lap set by Pollard, but he is well within attacking distance out of Delmont's lap time. The difference between the two of them only 1.5 attempts, and with that in mind, in fact 1.5 thousandths I should say, as my eyes do deceive me. But as he comes across the timeline, goes on to a lap, he's got the distant toe of Matthew Addy, and now Martin Tillin definitely looking to be in his ascendancy. But as we see Addy coming through turns 1 and 2, through the left-hander he goes. Well, Matthew Addy P6 currently, and still looking for that strong performance day to keep himself right in the hunt of a top 3 spot in the Prime class come the end of the season. And into turn at number 3 he goes, through the right-hander and onwards towards 4. And Addy, in fact, having a better run for the opening couple of corners compared to Tillin. You can see the gap between the two of them has actually become quite more pronounced over the first 3 corners, and over the bridge he goes and in towards turn at number 6. And Addy, always a driver, never one to give in, always giving it his utmost as he comes on down through turn number 7 and in towards 8. And I think for Matthew Addy, we could see quite a run of form here, given the fact earlier on in the season, first half of the season, it did look as though the Sam Cases with Next Gen Racing driver was struggling a little bit in terms of pace and getting acclimatised to the car, but now he is finding his momentum in his rhythm. I do think as well perhaps some of the circuits may not have been favourable for Addy. Of course, all drivers do have circuits which they prefer over others. Some drivers prefer power circuits, other drivers prefer circuits that are a bit more technical. Then you do get those who don't mind any type of circuit, they enjoy all of them, but it does seem as though the circuits we've seen more recently have started to favour Addy's potential driving style as he comes down towards turn number 1, not setting an improved lap there, but going on to another one. Mikey Pollard in the pit lane. But what about Ian Manners, I hear you ask? Currently your championship leader in the Prime class, he's P9, a whole second of his teammate, and well, Manners here definitely up against it right now. I think that championship lead definitely may be sliding the way to Pollard if this is the indicator based on qualifying. But as he comes down in towards turn number 3, we still got 4 minutes to try and put things aside, plus also the final lap when we strike the clock at 15 minutes. We do have the overtime rule in effect, where a driver who's on a lap when 15 minutes is reached, they're allowed to finish that lap in a reasonable time. And as he heads over the Yokohama Bridge, I think for Manners it is definitely now looking as though it is going to be an uphill battle if he can't find the time in the next couple of minutes. As he comes on down, meanwhile at the front of the field, here is Mikey Pollard, the other DCW racing machine, number 73 driver, and well, he is only pulling a 15.330 by 300ths currently from Lee Holmes, and Adam Delmont a further 1.3 tenths behind. So things are tightening up in the hunt for pole position. Indeed, that hunt for the front row, it's all coming together with Effecti, with the top 2 rows are being separated by 2 tenths as Martin Tillin goes P4 with 15.534. Manners improves to a P7, so time is coming. The circuit, I think, is now starting to rubber in a little bit more, and it is providing a bit more lap time out there. But as we can see Pollard heading on down, we meanwhile look from him to Mark Sykes. And as we do see the 666 driver heading towards the timeline, he's currently P12, P6 in Prime class. Can he find a bit more time coming across the timeline this time? No, he cannot. He's still got a couple more laps to go. Jamie Dory goes P5 down to 15.712, almost 2 tenths off of Tilling's P4 time. So I think we have a top 4 that is in a slight world of its own, and then the rest of the field is trying to play for P5, or at least the 3rd row of the grid, given that we do have a 10th or just over a 10th between Dory and Piggott, and then it is 3.5 tenths to Matthew Addy in P7. But the battle between Matthew Addy and Ian Manners for what is that full fry of the grid's an interesting one as we see Sykes there letting the car roll away at turn number 3, going to the outside to release other drivers around him. And I believe that was Adam Delmont who he let go as he makes his way. In fact, it was Jamie Dory he let go as we check our electronic tag data on the cars, and as we do see Sykes heading over the bridge. Well, right now Sykes definitely, I think, still trying to find a bit more time, but is he going to be able to, given he's only really got time for 2 more laps come the end of this one? Time is fading fast. But as we see more times coming in, Daniel Fritz goes P7, 2nd place in the Prime class on a 15.974. A good lap there from the Whiskey Runners racing driver. Well, I can assure you he's not driving under the influence, or if he is being influenced by anything, it's the need for speed. Whereas he comes through turn at number 2, down towards 3, goes a bit overly deep there, just catches the car in time before he started playing sandcastles in the gravel. But as he makes his way through turn at number 4, well, right now the number 31 driver definitely leaving it late, but he's 2 tenths clear of Matthew Addy, and that could be enough to putting right up there in the battle for his top 5 finish at the end of the championship season in the Pro-Am class, given he does seem to be going well on home soil as he comes on through the King at 6 and onwards towards 7 and 8. But rolling on through, we do see Arctic 2 Gaming there saying in the YouTube chat, the guys are throwing that car around like a rag doll. I can't even get round a corner in this Clio without touching the barrier. Indeed, they really are chucking this car in, and that's the thing with the Clio Cup car. Once you get used to the flavour of the fact that it's going to naturally want to understeer on a power on corner exit, but it's also quite a bulky car, but it hasn't got too much speed, and it does focus very heavily on direction change. You do start to just chuck it into the corners. You've got to be bold on the brakes as well, but not too bold as to lock up the brakes, because these cars do not have advanced ABS systems, unlike a GT4 or a GT3 machine. But Manners right now, as he comes to time in line, does not improve there. He'll have one more opportunity to try and chuck himself further up the order, but we have got a number of drivers in the pits, including Lee Holmes, who I think has decided P2 is the best he can do by 1.5 tenths, almost over Adam Delmont. Martin Till in P4 in the pits, Matthew Addy P8, Adam McNally P10, Phil McDougall at P13. So it looks as though McDougall was going to have to do all his climbing in the race. Meanwhile, drivers out, they include Adam Delmont, as Delmont comes on down through turns number 10 and 11 in towards the braking zone for number 12, rolling the car through now. Can Delmont find a way to gain? I don't think he's going to, given the fact he's currently down on all of his personal best. Checker flag out on this session. Dory crossed the line as the checker flag was waved, so I don't think he'll be permitted to get another lap in. Delmont does not improve. What about Shane Piggott meanwhile? As we see Piggott coming out of the final corner, goes very deep. In fact, he decides to opt into the pit lane rather than stay out, so that is it for Shane Piggott. P6 overall is the best he's going to achieve. Meanwhile, Ian Manners making his way out to turn number 11 through the dog leg and up towards Recaro corner, and they're going as smooth as he can towards the apex, but even he has not improved. I think that car is going to be making its way into the pit lane. Yes, no, in fact, it does not. Camera angle being a bit deceiving there as he comes to line. Manners does improve, so our timer not accurate. He improves to 16.031. It puts him P8 there behind Daniel Fritz by 0.5 tenth. And meanwhile, have we got anybody else out there? The only other driver is Michael Lees, yet to finish his final lap, unless Jamie Dory is on a lap, and therefore he was able to sneak across the line. But Lee's coming on through. He's currently P11, P5 in the Pro-Am class. He crossed the timeline, and for Michael Lees, it's not improvement. And I think that is qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. The only other driver who may be on a lap, albeit it's going to be fractional, is Jamie Dory as he comes on through the final corner. Dory has improved in subsector 4, and as he heads down towards the timeline here, this could be a bold lap. And is it going to be enough? No, it's not. It's still P5 for Jamie Dory, so that's qualifying complete. It's Mikey Pollard on overall pole position and prime pole. And it'll be Lee Holmes alongside him on the front row with pro pole position at P2, separated by only 300ths between them in the end. And Adam Delmont and Martin Tilling will be on your second row. It'll then be Jamie Dory and Shane Piggott on your third row, Daniel Fritz and Ian Maz on your fourth row, and completing the top 10, Matthew Addy and Adam McNally. But an interesting qualifying session. Definitely have seen a contrast of performances, and right now Ian Maz, one of the biggest shocks of the session, given the fact he'll be starting P8, presuming all the lap time stand, and he's going to have to battle his way through. But as we make our way to the grid then for race number 1, this is how they line up. Mikey Pollard takes pole position for DCW Racing. Joined on the front row is the Pro-Am driver by the pro of Lee Holmes at ATEC Tech Racing. Between the two of them in the end, it was 400ths of a second. Adam Delmont from NXTGEN Racing and TT Simsports Martin Tilling line up on your second row, with Jamie Dory from NXTGEN Racing and Shane Piggott from Ace of Spades Racing completing row number 3. Behind them, we have the pair on row 4 of Daniel Fritz Whiskey Runners Racing on his home territory there, just pipping Ian Maz to the post for P7, with the DCW Racing driver a further 0.5 tenth behind Ian P8. Top 10 completed on the 5th row by Matthew Addy from NXTGEN Racing and his teammate Adam McNally from NXTGEN Racing there, with a difficult qualifying section for Adam McNally. Michael Lee starts P11, best of the rest out on the 6th row for NXTGEN Racing, joined by teammate Mark Sykes, P12, and then behind them on row number 7, it's the pair of Phil McDougall for CXR Project Black and Darren Ills for Ace of Spades Racing starting P14. And on the final row of the grid, it'll be John Higgins Jr., who did not settle at the privateer, and Mark Cadmore with him, with the safety car, of course, in the pit lane at any point as needed in the race. But with 16 drivers expected to take to the grid, albeit we didn't see Higgins Jr. or Mark Cadmore make their way out into qualifying, so perhaps they've got some issues issues with their cars that they're still trying to resolve. Here we are expecting at least 14 cars, if not all 16. It's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, but it's also going to be a very short run in towards turn number 1. And as the field gets set and ready to go racing, ladies and gentlemen, well, it's going to be 15 laps of racing action. All the drivers are mostly there, and when we look from the back of the field to the front of the field, and it's DCW Races, Mikey Pollard versus Lee Holmes into turn number 1. But who of the pair is going to be the one to come away with the spoils come the exit of turn number 2, as that may just set the tone for the race that lies ahead. We are 15 seconds away from lights out. And now we await the lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the first race of the day, and as Mikey Pollard gets a reasonable start, meanwhile Lee Holmes absolutely charging off the line. It's a short run to 1, but Holmes on the inside. Behind them, meanwhile, Adam Delmont also trying to follow on through. You can see Pollard defending hard. Holmes backs out as they come through the left-hand kink, and down towards 2 they go. Everybody quick on the brakes here, and it's going to be quick fire braking from everybody. Oh, goodness me! And it's gone very, very wrong for a trio of drivers, plus also we've got Phil McDougall off the road, but Martin Tilling there being collected, I think, by the rear, what was the front of Daniel Fritz's car. We've also had Jamie Dory collected as part of that incident. We couldn't quite see all of it from our camera angle, but it's definitely gone wrong for a number of drivers. But meanwhile, as we look back up inside the top 5, well, we can see Adam Manali chasing after Shane Piggott, and just behind Michael Lees here, side by side, battling with Ian Manners as Manners tries to make some early progress. But through turn number 6 they go, contact there with Manners. Manners almost made to go to the grass. He just catches it in time. Elbows out racing. They haven't even completed a lap as they make the way through turn 7 and 8 and up towards what will be turn number 9 they go. Safety car has been deployed as a result of the incident earlier on, as we're to understand it, albeit I think we're waiting for confirmation as to where it has been. In fact, it is out there on circuit, so our drivers are permitted to race up to the start-finish line, and then when they catch the safety car, they have to neutralise the racing. But Michael Lees takes a little bit of sneak peek up the inside of Matthew Addy, can't quite find it, and has to wait instead as they head down towards turn number 1. But the racing will stop now with the safety car being out. And with that now, everybody holding in place. We have got a couple of drivers into the pit lane, including Mark Sykes and Jamie Dory. So 2 have come in for the damage they picked up in the run to turn number 2. And nobody else opted to come in. So it has been a bit of a difficult start for 2 drivers. But in particular for Jamie Dory, who having started on what was the second row of the grid, find himself being knocked about before he could even complete the first braking zone. But as they make the way now at a crawling pace, there'll be quick repairs for our drivers in the pit lane, and they'll make the way back out as soon as possible. But it is Mikey Pollard who leads after 1 lap ahead of Lee Holmes P2. Behind them, Adam Delmont P3, Shane Piggott P4, followed by Adam McNally P5. It's then Matthew Addy P6 ahead of Michael Lees P7, followed by Ian Manners P8. Manners backing off a little bit there, trying to give himself some space to get some tyre temperature up. And then Darren Ills P9 and Martin Tilling, another one of the biggest losers at the start of this race, albeit able to keep the car running rather than having to come into the pits. But he's dropped down from what was P4 on the grid at 2 P10. And the Tiki Simsport driver will know he's now got his work cut out for him. But as he makes his way up towards turn number 9, gradually Phil McDougall behind him, P11, Daniel Fritz P12. Daniel Fritz in the midst of the incident. We believe that Daniel Fritz may have kicked off the incident, although we can't confirm that given the camera angle we have, but we don't know if there was contact on the back of his car for the Whiskey Runners Racing driver. And then Jamie Dory P13 making his way up towards the back of the pack already, and P14 it's Mark Sykes with John Higgins Jr. and Mark Cadmore not able to make it to the grid. Their cars not able to be brought out in time. So as a result, 14 car grid, all 14 cars still racing, but we are waiting right now to go racing once again. The safety car, I think, will go around for 1 more lap to give both Dory and Sykes the opportunity to catch up. Sykes is making his way across the Yokohama Bridge right now, so he is making headway. I'm not sure if he's going to be there come the end of this lap, but I think we will be going racing at the end of lap number 3. But as they make their way down towards turn number 2, I can see that in the YouTube chat, Phil McDougall saying, watching that racing here is fun, but I don't enjoy driving it. Looking forward to the next 2 rounds, and I can completely understand the sentiment, Phil. There's a couple of circuits for me personally that I'm not a big fan of racing at, but I do enjoy the spectacle of watching racing at. And off the top of my head, in terms of one of them that I can think to my mind, it is the circuit of Paul Ricard. For some reason, I'm not the biggest fan of driving around it, but I always find it fantastic to watch racing around it, and I think that's the main main one that comes to my mind off the top of my head, but it's not in iRacing. Of course, it's available in other simulators, but not currently in iRacing. But long may it come, because we do have some fantastic French circuits on the iRacing platform. But enough about France. We're here down under in Australia, in the Oceania region. And well, from the world of down under, Mikey Pollard right now is definitely not feeling under. He's feeling absolutely primed as he makes his way behind the safety car still and up towards turn number 9. But as he gets set, we have still got Mark Sykes trying to play catch up to the field. He is almost there, but I suspect we will be going racing at the end of this lap rather than using another lap up of the race. We still do have, when we go on the restart, another 12 laps of racing to go. And as Sykes begins to make his way up towards turn number 9, we look to the front of the field here. Safety car is breaking away, and I think we are going race on the exit of the corner. I think the safety car will duck into the pits. No, in fact, the safety car is going to stay out one more lap, so it does mean we will lose a further lap. We'll have 11 laps of racing, and it will give an opportunity for Mark Sykes to completely catch up. And, well, I think some drivers right now will be itching to go. Mikey Pollard won't mind this too much, given the fact that there's less racing, and it means that it's going to be a more gradual win for him. But also, I think he'll want to win this outright, and he won't want to spend any time behind the safety car longer than he has to. But he'll be grateful that the time is gradually being worn down. But meanwhile, Michael Lee's behind. You can see there, getting ready to go on the battle with Matthew Addy now that Sykes has caught up to the back of the field, going into turn number 2, so the field is all bunched back up, so we definitely will go green flag next time around. And as we jump on board here with the NXTGEN Racing driver already going onto the inside of turn 3, I think Lees is trying to tease out where the grip is on those inside lines for where that we do go green flag at the end of this lap, because he's just putting the car everywhere where you would if you were looking to make an overtake. Also been a bit aggressive on the brakes here going through 6. I think everyone's trying to hustle behind the safety car now. The safety car's been given an order to start to speed up, bring the pace of this lap up to the ground where they can go racing. And well, we are now only a couple of corners away from restarting, and it will be Mikey Pollard who takes us away to the green. And as he comes on through the dogleg, the O'Brien dogleg of turns 10 and 11, safety car is going off. It's now for Mikey Pollard to control the pace as they head through the final corner. And he goes immediately on corner exit with green flag racing once again, ladies and gentlemen, for another 11 laps as they charge onto lap number 5. And Pollard nails the restart as they come down towards turn number 1. Now into the braking zone they go here. Third back Matthew Addy already trying to put some pressure on Adam Delmont as they head for the sweep and into the braking zone for 2. But coming on through, we've also got a bit of cold brakes there for Pollard, and Lee Holmes all over the back of him as Pollard has to defend into turn number 3. We're in Darren Ills has gone off road at turn number 2, but meanwhile, front of the field, Mikey Pollard under huge pressure here as they come out of 3 in towards 4, and also Adam Delmont now started to get stuck into the mix here, and the top 3 will close together, and this is going to cause Pigott and McNally in P4, P5 respectively also to group up, but as they head over the bridge and through the right-hander of 6, well, Pollard now started to stabilise, but it's not pressure that he wants as they come through, but for Lee Holmes, it's pressure that he needs to try and make a move as they head up towards turn at number 9. And onto the brakes, but riding on board of Adam Delmont here as the NXTGEN Racing driver finds himself second driver in this pack in terms of the pursuers, and as he heads through 11 here, chopping as much of the turn 11 apex as possible. Delmont right now, he's itching to go racing here. He knows a win is potentially on the cards, and given the opportunity to potentially seal this championship with a round to spare in round number 7 next week. But as they make the way down towards another lap, onto lap 6 they go. Delmont here setting a purple lap, because we haven't had a proper lap of racing so far, so those laps will definitely tumble down in terms of lap time. But Delmont really trying to make the hurry up call here in terms of getting moves done as they break the way through turn number 2. But you can see Pollard defending hard. It's quite a narrow circuit around here with respect to the corners in the open half of the lap, as we're hearing that Martin Tillins had an off track at turn number 2. A couple cars further behind have. Martin Tillin, I think, has had to be towed to the pits due to a contact with the tyre barrier. But meanwhile, we look back to with Ian Manners here. And Manners, by contrast, not able to make as much progress as some of his peers are able to as they come through turn number 4 and over the rise onto Yokohama Bridge they go. But Manners just waiting to try and get into the zone to battle Michael Lees. Of course, he'll want to try and get the place of Elise and Addy in front to be runner-up in the Prime class in each race if he can't find a way ahead of Pollard. Albeit Pollard, of course, has got the 4 pros between himself and Addy. So I think Pollard is a bit of a world of his own in the Prime class right now. Meanwhile, the rest of the Prime field are fighting for the podium place. races as if it's going out of style as they charge their way through the dogleg and up towards turn number 12 at Recaro, but onto the brakes. And meanwhile, Matthew Addy still has lead to him, but you can see the gap. There's a bit of contact to the wall there for what is McNally, albeit the car still going strong. It's just a side tap, it's not a major blow. And as they head on to the next lap, we can see the 3 primes here all staying together but falling off of the leading pros and the 1 prime in the top 5 pack, and that does give a sign that Matthew Addy is now battling against the current, as meanwhile it's a lock up there for what is Adam Delmont, and we can see that on the front left brake, really seizing up under braking and not giving him any rotation whatsoever. And now McNally loses that versus the top 4, but those brakes definitely easier to snatch at and cause the lock up with there not being those former ABS systems as they come up through turn number 4. Shane Piggott now trying to break away from McNally, trying to get a bit closer to Delmont and Holmes, but notice how Holmes has actually fallen away from Pollard. The gap now is almost 8 tenths as they head through turn number 7 and 8 now and rolling their way on through. I wonder if Lee Holmes has to spend more time looking in his rear view mirror, given that he has got Adam Delmont right behind. And as we ride on board and look back from the 8 racing machine, coming out to turn number 9 here, well, Holmes making some exaggerated moves, trying to give himself as much run through the dogleg, and meanwhile Delmont staying very firmly in the middle of the road, coming through turn number 12, and Delmont getting closer and closer. And here's the thing about Adam Delmont, of course, we heard from him in the battles that he had with Chris Daines earlier on in the season. When he's given more and more time on circuit, he doesn't only get too much time to practice. Qualifying in the way does become a bit of a practice session for him as he tries to put the time down, but it's in the races he just naturally finds that lap time. It just arrives, and by the time he gets into races 2 and 3, he gets very fast at all. But as he makes his way through turn at number 2 there and in towards 3 they go, getting very close to the back of Holmes' car there. And the 8 racing driver, I think, definitely feels as though he's got a lot to worry about the next gen racing car behind. But as they come through turn 3 in towards 4, meanwhile further back Matthew Addy still keeping Lisa Manners at bay, with McNally now falling back towards them. So I think that lock up for McNally has definitely upset his momentum as they head for the kink of 5 and onto the bridge, because he's not able to carry as much speed as he'd like to previously, and that pace has completely fallen out of touch for McNally versus the likes of Piggott and Delmont in front. But coming on through turn 7 and 8, and now up towards 9 they go in to the left-hander, and we can see there Ian Mann taking a little bit of a sneak peek versus Lees, and can't quite find the move, but trying to say to Lees, look, I know you're chasing after Addy, but I'm coming for you as well. And as they make their way through the dogleg and in towards Recaro, onto the brakes now, and for Manners, it's all about trying to get Lees to make a mistake, and Lees does go a little bit deep there. That could be the opportunity he needs. It's 1.5 tenths. They make the one to the start-finish straight. He's going to get closer and closer. He will pick up a triple toe. Lees with the double toe. Manners pulls the inside here. They've got the sweeper first, and this is going to be a difficult corner for them to go side by side. Manners has the authority to the inside, but he backs off there with Lees on the outside, but Lees goes to the grass, catches the car just in time. It's a lock-up, and Lees is off into the barriers almost. Thankfully, he's got a bit of run-off space in the gravel, so therefore he's able to catch the car, but Michael Lees getting it wrong and now losing the place as a result, and he's got Phil McDougall behind, who's 8 tenths and closing quick. But as they come down through turn number 3, meanwhile Phil McDougall, Jamie Dory and Mark Sykes all in line, the stern formation, and going hunting once more to try and make up the time they lost earlier on. But heading on through turn at number 4, they'll have to wait for a brief moment as we do see going off circuit. That's Phil McDougall, who's taken a trip wide, and as he does, he'll relinquish the places to Jamie Dory and Mark Sykes. Meanwhile, looking from them back up to McNally. McNally right now under huge pressure as he comes on through the left-hand at a turn at number 9 and up towards 10 and 11 he goes. And you can see the next gen racing driver really feeling the pressure now as they make their way in towards turn number 12. And the problem is for Addy in particular, who finds himself behind McNally. He wants to get clear of his rival in the next gen racing machine as soon as possible, but he's got what is Ian Manners right behind, and Manners is continuing to put those lap times in. He is hustling here. Is the DCW Racing 52 as they head in towards turns 1 and 2 once more. He looked for the move on Michael Lees last lap here, and he made it work with Lees going wide, but not able to find it versus Addy this time as they come through the left of 2. But as they make their way up towards 3, meanwhile we look to Adam Delmont, who's fallen off of Lee Holmes over the last couple of laps. You can see that the rear brake discs of Adam Delmont's car absolutely glowing red hot. A lot of the brake bites will be pushed backwards in these cars. That is the one thing they are allowed to adjust on the setup, is the brake bias setting, but beyond that they can't adjust anything else. Everything else stays as default, but the next gen racing driver here needed more and more rotation off of that rear braking force, and as he comes through turn 7, well, now Lee Holmes 1.1 seconds clear, and meanwhile Meanwhile, Piggott still within 4 tenths. I would imagine the Briton right now looking more rearward than forward as he comes through 9 and towards the end of the lap. But looking from him to Ian Manners here, all over the back of Matthew Addy. We jump on board with the Clio Cup 52 machine as he makes way through 10 and 11. And right now, DCW Race will definitely be urging him on as much as possible as he tries to look for the movement into 12. He can't find it though, too far back. But with all that momentum he took through turns 7 and 8 to be within 1.5 tenths in the run up towards 9, it's just the wrong time and the wrong place to be that close. And that's the problem at Oran Park when you're trying to battle this particular corners where you want to be further away and you can naturally gain versus other corners where you want to be literally hugging the rear of your opponent, and it's in this opening half of the lap where you want to be as close as possible because you want to try and make the moves or force the moves to happen. But as the lap then opens up across the Yokohama Bridge, you want to be a bit further back due to the effects of the dirty air, and you want to be closing come the end, coming through Ricciardo to go onto that start for this straight, and that's what Maz needs to do. He needs to gradually keep himself up for a run on the next lap, using this lap as the impetus as they come through turn number 4, through the kick of 5 and over the bridge now. Of course, McNally gifting a bit of toe there to Addy, given how close they are. But Maz will pick the draft off of both drives. He comes down through turn number 7 and just gradually bring it through. But you'll notice they're having a fight at the steering wheel for that sweeping right-hander of 7. You'll see it again here at turn number 9, albeit he brakes nice and early and gets the car to rotate very aggressively. So Man is now reacting to the amount of dirty air on the car, using that earlier braking to turn in. But here's Ricciardo, and 4 attempts he goes into the braking zone. Very early approach to the apex curve there, coming out of the corner. He does get the better exit, but Addy is 4 attempts and closing fast. Although I think Addy will feel as though he's safe as they make the way onto lap 12 of 15. I don't think he'll feel as though he has to go defensive versus Manners here. If the gap was a tenth less going on to the start of the straight, then the worry would definitely be there. But as they make the way on down into the braking zone, meanwhile Jamie Dory and Michael Lees head on through the left-hand king of the sweeper and on to the brakes. Turn number 2, Lees goes deep again, and turn 2 catches Michael Lees out, and as he makes his way gradually back towards terra firma, well, he puts the car back on the asphalt now, keeps on the inside to let Phil McDougall go. McDougall moves up into P10, P5 in the prime class, and Michael Lees and turn 2 are not a combination that seems to be working out today as they make the way through the right-hander turn number 4. But as they come on through and up towards the bridge they go. Not long left in this race, another 3 laps after the one they're currently on. But as our drivers continue to push on, meanwhile Adam McNally here getting it wrong, and turn 7 8 I'm hearing under pressure from Matthew Addy, and Ian Manners trying to get into the fold as well. It's a 3-way battle here for P5 overall, and with it the battle for P2 in the prime class between Addy and Manners. But I think with McNally being given a bit of breathing room, for Addy having to go a bit more defensive versus Manners, well, now this is going to be very close into turn number 1, because the problem is it's not a good run for McNally, or is it? Well, in fact, it has worked out a little bit better, but for Addy in particular, he's now got Manners within a 10th. Manners will look up the inside here as they head in towards the opening sweep, and as they do, well, it's going to be Manners who tries to do what he did to Lees last time around, which is simply be on the inside there and get your drive on the outside to outbrake himself into turn 2. But Addy wise to that one, and McNally in return now back under pressure as they come into fray. Addy not able to look for the move, but McNally goes deep, and as they come out of the right-hander at turn number 3, now it's going to be Manners versus McNally into turn number 4. Manners there on the inside. Addy parks it on the apex slightly to try and hold the position firm. McNally forced out wide as they make the way up towards turn number 6. Well, Manners and Addy have made the way through, and Adam McNally losing out there with one mistake at turn number 3, cost him 2 places in the long term. But as they make the way up towards turn number 9, now the battle will be on for second place in the Pro class. With Manners wasn't pushing for it originally, now he definitely will be a ton so as they head through 9 and up towards 11, but charging through the dog leg and in towards 12 now. Manners within 1.5 tenths, they head to the braking zone and coming on for a left-hander. Manners goes a bit deep, and that is going to cause him to lose speed out the final corner. And in fact there, McNally comes back at him and simply says, well, don't mind if I do, if you're going to make a mistake like that. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, battle for P2, Lee Holmes versus Adam Delmont. Delmont on the inside into 1. Holmes cuts him back, and Delmont outbrakes himself into 2. Beautiful racing between the two of them, and Lee Holmes there simply preying on Adam Delmont, carrying too much momentum into the opening braking zone, and he called it actually absolutely right, as now Shane Piggott is all on the back of Delmont coming out of turn number 3. These guys battling hard and fast. We're in Jamie Dory's had an off track at turn number 2, and that's lost him at P8 to Mark Sykes. Mark Sykes moving up another overall position, still staying in what is P4 in the Prime class. But as we continue to watch here, the battle for P2 overall and in the pros, Foster up to a new extreme. We're rolling their way through turn number 8 and up towards 9 they go. And no change at the moment between the trio here, as we're in. Darren Hills has also had an off track at what is turn number 2 and rejoins down in P13, losing the place to Daniel Fritz. It does seem as though turn 2 catching out many a driver here, but meanwhile we look back to that battle between Matthew Addy, Adam McNally and Ian Manners. As they come through 10 and 11, McNally very close to think about a move into the final corner, doesn't go for it, instead opts for a very late apex. I think Manners was thinking about putting his nose on the inside, but in the end decided not to. And look at the run that McNally has just had off the final corner. That is a sensational run. That's going to put him in attacking distance before they get to the kink of 1. And as they make their way into the sweeper, as it's known, McNally on the inside, he can't quite get fully alongside initially, but now on the brakes he'll go all in for it. Addy has to respect the fact he's there. Beautiful racemanship between the two of them, side by side still as they come out of 2 in towards 3. Now be Addy on the inside in towards the braking zone for the right-hander. And well, who's going to back out here? I think Manali's going to have to back out. No, he's not, in fact. A little bit of a rub between the two of them, but rubbing is racing, as they say. And as they come through turn number 4, Addy's on the curb. There's a bit of contact there with the side of Manali's car after he drops off the apex curb. That unsettled the car and kicked the rear on around, but Adam Manali gets it done. Brilliant racing there for the pro driver, and that moves it back into P5 overall, and Ian Manners just not able to pounce. Matthew Addy loses the place overall, but he doesn't lose anything in class. Meanwhile, we look back up to the battle for P2 and your pro win here of Lee Holmes versus Adam Delmont. But as they make their way into the final corner, we cut to your race leader who weaves from side to side. He knows why he's done it. He's not just your prime winner, he's your winner overall. It's Mikey Pollard from DCW Racing who takes the win in race number 1 ahead of Lee Holmes, your pro winner, P2. And then Adam Delmont round off the overall podium ahead of Shane Piggott, who rounds off the pro podium. Adam McNally holds on to P5 ahead of Matthew Addy, and Matthew Addy will be runner-up prime class ahead of Ian Manners, and then it will be Mark Sykes who finishes P8 there ahead of Jamie Dory P9 as they both make their way across, and then Michael Elise P10 ahead of Phil McDougall P11 there, best of the rest for CXR Project Black. And then we do have 18 seconds to go until we get to our next finisher of Daniel Fritz P12. As Fritz comes out of the final quarter for Whiskey Runners Racing, and he will take that spot of P7 in the prime class, the Australian, and then it will be Darren Hills, the last of finishers, P13, P8 of the Pro-Am class there as he crosses the line for Ace of Spades Racing. A difficult race for the pair of them. We did have 3 retirements in this race, 1 on circuit and 2 didn't make it to the grid, and they include Martin Tillin after the instant early on in the race, which saw him retire, and Mark Cadwatt and John Higgins Jr. were not able to make it to the grid for this race. But meanwhile, for Mikey Pollard, a great way to start off today, and with that win will definitely now chewing into the lead of Ian Manners. And I think if he picks up another one like this, he'll be started on pole for the second race of the day, then that Pro-Am Championship lead will definitely be in his hands come the end of the racing here. But meanwhile, behind Lee Holmes having to fight hard to keep Adam Delmont at bay, but the ATEC Tech Racing driver taking a key result here and taking a win over Delmont, and that means he'll start to cut down the advantages that Delmont has, but he'll need more of this if he wants to make it come to full fruition going into the final round. And Matthew Addy thinking about Adam McNally on the brain here, and he'll definitely have had Adam McNally on the brain. The number 57 driver from NXTGEN Racing coming home runner-up in the prime class, but having to fend off Ian Manners every step of the way to do so, and manage Adam McNally there, who was always going to be a thorn in his side in battling for P5 overall. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. After was the first 15 laps of racing today, albeit with 3 laps under the safety car, Mikey Pollard takes the win up for DCW Racing by 3.1 seconds over Lee Holmes at P2. The ATEC Tech Racing driver there, fighting hard behind the prime winner and overall winner, and holding on to the pro win there with Adam Delmont hot at his heels in P3 for NXTGEN Racing. The two of them only separated by 2 attempts at the finish line, if that, and then Shane Piggott P4 for Ace of Spades Racing, missing out on the overall podium, but round off the pro podium there with 3rd in class. It was then a total of 9 seconds, almost 10 seconds to Adam McNally in P4, P5 I should say, get my numbers mixed up for NXTGEN Racing, ahead of teammate and prime driver Matthew Addy, the runner-up in the prime class there, who held off Ian Manners to take P2 in class. Ian Manners round off the podium of the prime class, P7 overall for DCW Racing. Between them, only a 10th, if that, come the checkered flag. Mark Sykes P8, they're missing out on the Pro-Am podium, but still a valiant effort for P8 overall, P4 in class for Next Gen Racing, ahead of teammates Jamie Dory and Michael Lees, who completed the top 10. And then best the rest, Phil McDougall for CXR Project Black. 4 seconds off of the top 10, with Daniel Fritz then a further, 17 seconds behind in P12 for Whiskey Runners Racing. And then our last finisher, Darren Ills, P13 there for Ace of Spades Racing after a difficult opening half of the race. One retirement on circuit, that was Tiki Supersports' Martin Tilling, retiring with 10 laps to go, so that will be classified as a did not finish for the gentlemen. And then John Higgins Jr. and Mark Cadwell, the two privateers, unable to make it to the grid due to technical issues of their cars, and well, we do hope to see them on the grid potentially for the second race of the day. Speaking of which, ladies and gentlemen, that was race 1 of 3. We've still got 2 more to go today, and we'll be back in approximately 5 minutes' time for the build-up to race number 2. It's going to be another 15 laps, and can Mikey Pollard make it 2 overall wins out of 2, and with that 2 wins in the Pro-Am class. We'll be back shortly to have the build-up and plenty more as we get ready to find out how the story continues. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the build-up to race 203 here down under in Australia in round 6 of the Next Gen Racing Front-Wheel Drive Fridays Clio Cup Series, brought to you on iRacing, and we start off an absolute nail-biter of a race 1. After a close call in qualifying in the battle between Mikey Pollard and Lee Holmes, it'll be Mikey Pollard who'd hold on to take the win in the first race of the day, both the overall and the Pro-Am win, with Lee Holmes fending off Adam Delmont for P2. But as we see Mikey Pollard making his way on around here in the warm-up session, with only a couple minutes to go, if that, until we go to the grid once more. Well, the DCW Racing driver will know he'll need another win if he wants to firmly start to move that championship momentum into his favour in the Prime class, with Ian Manners by contrast finishing P3 in the Prime class, and therefore still picking up key points, but missing out on that runner-up spot, with the battle between him and Matthew Addy being very close throughout. But we've seen a number of pros and primes come to blows already, and we saw Adam Delmont fighting hard with both Matthew Addy and Ian Manners, and will can Lee Holmes find a way to get a better start, better than he did on the opening race, and I say that albeit with a pinch of salt, given the fact that the launch of Lee Holmes off the line was strong, and it was almost enough to beat Mikey Pollard into turn number 1, but in the end Lee Holmes not able to make it count with that short run. And as he gets ready to go again, if he's able to find the time, he may just decide to go all in under braking and get the move done nice and early. But we'll have to wait and see, of course, because at the same time, Lee Holmes knows that he can't afford to lose out on overall points versus Adam Delmont. And Adam Delmont, of course, the one who is trying to charge away with the championship, with 2 rounds to spare after today, and potentially wrap things up before the season finale 2 weeks from now. It's an interesting contrast with Delmont having that points advantage, but the number 37 driver, as we said earlier, is a driver who only gets faster as the race evening goes on. He starts off a little bit slow compared to where he thinks the pace is going to be, but by the time he gets into race 1, he's really building up momentum, and races 2 and 3, we normally see Adam Delmont at his apex. But as he makes his way up through turn 4, or his peak we should say, and up towards the peak point of the circuit, by the highest points at Yokohama Bridge, we are only about 2 to 3 minutes away from heading to the grid now. And indeed that practice time you see at the top at centre of your screen is not quite accurate. We don't have 5 minutes remaining, it is a bit less than that. But as our drivers get themselves set, we do look to the chat, particularly the YouTube chat, and we see Arctic 2 Gaming. They're saying not looking forward to tomorrow's race in the FF 1600 series, and that is the Ray Engineering Formula Fixed 1600 series, saying not able to get consistent laps done. We'll have to wait to see how he gets on there, Arctic 2 Gaming, but we do look forward to that, and that will be brought to you post-round as of this Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. It will be on what is Saturday the 27th of May, rather than the originally billed Sunday the 28th of May. We've been able to bring it forward by a day to bring it a little bit closer to when the race actually occurred. But as we focus back to here, and the drivers making the way on around currently, we do see Daniel Fritz of Whiskey Runners Racing coming on through with his turn number 4 there. And what a difficult start to proceedings after that contact on the open lap. We're not quite sure what triggered it off, whether it was triggered by Fritz, whether there was a bit of contact to the rear of his car, but we did see him end up right in the wars with Jamie Dory and Mark Sykes being 2 drivers of a number who did get picked off. But as the number 31 driver here makes his way on through turn number 9, and up towards turn number 10, he'll be hoping it's not the same in the second race of the day. But meanwhile, Michael Lee for NXTGEN Racing having difficulty being lured into a mistake at turn number 2 by Matthew Addy. In fact, it was not Matthew Addy, it was by Ian Manners, when Manners looked up the inside through turn number 1, and Lee's really struggling through with turn number 2 on multiple occasions, and he'll be looking to put those struggles aside and find a smoother approach to that racing line, coming through the opening braking zone, because he won't want to lose more points. And the critical positions points do mean prizes at the end of the day, and that prize being a higher position in the championship come the end of each and every round. But as he heads on through that turn at number 9, we've got Matthew Addy making his way out onto the circuit here, and the Sam Case's NXTGEN Racing driver will absolutely be itching to go racing it once again after a great start to the day, and now only moments away from going racing once again. Runner-up in the Prime class in the first race, and he'd love to make it another run-up spot as a minimum. Ideally, he'd like to take the win. Everybody would like to win, but as the checker flag comes out, there can only be one winner in each class, and let's see who it is. It's time for us to find out. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid, they'll start exactly where they finished from race number 1. Unfortunately, we can't walk you down through the grid due to the limitations of an iRacing replay file, but we can see our grid gradually being formed up here, with Michael Lee flashing his lights, I think immediately trying to send the signal through to Matthew Addy, which is I'm coming for you whether you like it or not. But meanwhile, looking up towards the front of the field, Adam Delmont, of course, will be starting P3 with the fact finishing 3rd in the first race today. And we look to the distant blimp camera as our blimp makes its way over the circuit. Currently currently making its way over what is turn number 9 as we're to understand it. But the grid is all set and we are waiting for the lights out sequence, and it will be 14 drivers who make their way to the grid. As our drivers get set, the safety car just getting in position in the pit lane. We're not going to be seeing Mark Cadmore or John Higgins Jr. here, so we do now only have 14 drivers racing for race number 2. But what we may lack in quantity by no means is got to be up, well, it has not got to be made up by quality. The quality's there, and we await the lights. And it's lights out and away we go for our second race of the day, and Mikey Pollard gets a good start this time, immediately covers off Lee Holmes, who once again launches out of the blocks. But the thing is, Mikey Pollard knows it's coming, and as they make their way out towards turn number 1, everybody else on the racing line, albeit jostling for position to a degree, they come through the left-hander and in towards the braking zone for 2, and as they come down, Holmes looks up the inside, and Holmes is all going in. Meanwhile, it's all kicking off further back. We've got multiple cars astray there, but we look back up to the front of the field, and Mikey Pollard's having to defend as he breaks his way to turn number 3, and Lee Holmes is going all in, and we thought he would. We thought he'd absolutely go hammer and tongs as Matthew Addy sent off the road there at turn number 3, but Mikey Pollard covers it off in the end. Meanwhile, further back, we can see Adam McNally side by side of corner exit 4 versus Jamie Dorian as they come onto the bridge here. Well, McNally, you have to give him the space on the outside as they come through turn number 6. And Dory trying to cut his way back in, but Manali says no. Instead, he puts the car in the way as they come through turns 7 and 8, and up towards 9 they go for the first time in this race, but breaking their way on through it. We bring the lap count up on your screen there on 1 lap of 15, and as they head up towards turn number 11, well, now everything calms down, albeit it has been a chaotic start, multiple drivers off, particularly at the rear of the field. But as we see our leaders here breaking their way through Recaro corner, Manali goes a little bit deep, bit of contact there between him and Dory, and they've come back together, and Dory turns to the wall there. He's gone on around, and Jamie Dory spinning the car back around. Well, that's going to be absolutely frustrating for Jamie Dory, but meanwhile, after 1 lap, it's Mikey Pollard who leads ahead of Lee Holmes P2, followed by Adam Delmont P3. It's Delmont now in the picture once again. Shane Pigg at P4 ahead of Ian Manners P5. He's currently second in the Pro-Am class after Pollard, and putting a great start of this race into his standing. Meanwhile, Adam McNally P6 ahead of Matthew Addy P7, and then behind it's Phil McDougall at P8 ahead of Martin Tilley P9, and Darren Eels are looking up the inside here. Martin Tilley for P9 can't quite find it. He completes the top 10 and mounting the curb there at turn at number 3, and Jamie Dory looking around the outside trying to start to recover his Jamie Dory, but he's got a long way to go as they make the way through turn number 4, going around the outside, and there Dory gets it down on Eels before they head onto the bridge. But as they clear the right hander at turn number 6 and onwards they go towards the second half of this lap, Daniel Fritz P12, Mark Sykes P13 and Michael Lees P14, all 3 drivers being caught up in that instant at turn number 1 into 2, and well, what's upset a number has not upset the front of the field as Mikey Pollard continues to hold on and coming on through turn number 12 right now. Going on to lap 3 shortly. We say hello to Adam Delmont there in the YouTube chat as he waves with the sunglasses on and the smiley emoji. Glad to have you with us, Adam. I hope you're doing well. And as our drivers make their way down towards turn number 1. This time around, well, Pollard now started to open up a bit of advantage. And meanwhile, Adam Delmont there in P3, trying to get closer and closer to the back of Lee Holmes. So as we jump on board here, close this one thing, and it's passing as a completely separate initiative. And as they make their way in towards turn at number 3, onto the brakes they go here. It's all line of stern at the moment. All 3 drivers, they're using a little bit of the apex curve. Got to be careful because these curves are not like your more modern day curves that you see at circuits which are relatively flat. They are the old type, heavily raised at the apex, and indeed the car bounced around when they clipped the curve, and it does unsettle the machine. Even though these Clio Cup cars are heavy and very focused towards the front end with all the weight being transferred forward all the time, it does mean that the car gets unsettled when it clips those curves on corner entry. But coming on through turn at number 9 and up towards 10 and 11 they go, sweeping through the dog leg, and now it's all about staying closer. Adam Delmont, he'll want to get closer to Lee Holmes coming into this corner at the end of the lap as Holmes goes a little bit deeper there and nails the run into the apex. Delmont taking a bit more of a conservative approach, which is approach early and then just use the toe to balance things out. I wonder if Delmont is just playing the patience game. Meanwhile, further back, Martin Tilling here side by side with Phil McDougall. McDougall's gone overly deep there at what is turn number 12, and Tilling here covering off the inside of the road immediately. Jamie Dory going between what is Tilling and McDougall as they power their way down towards turn number 1. I think Tilling may have a slowdown that he's suffered. In fact, that's why he's off the racing line. But as they make their way into the opening corners, side by side here between Tilling and Eels. Eels on the outside, so Eels will lose out. But meanwhile, looking back. We've got plenty of battling here inside the top three. That's Adam Delmont on the inside of Lee Holmes, and gets it done. I'm hearing in my ear that they were battling into turn 3, and it was Holmes on the outside of Pollard, and with the battling between the two of them, Adam Delmont has been able to capitalise and now puts himself into P2 lead of the pros as he comes on down through turns 7 and 8 once again. But now with the converse situation, I would imagine that Adam Delmont will try to put as much pressure on Pollard as soon as possible before Pollard's able to try and carve things down and extract an advantage. And that's the one thing about Adam Delmont: once he's got you in his sights, he's not going to let you go easy as they come through turn number 12, and Pollard will be feeling that pressure as they make the way onto lap number 5 very shortly. But as they charge their way down the straightaway and arc towards the left-hand sweep of one, well, Ian Manners right now continuing to try and close on this group. He's 3.5 seconds back and pushing on, but heading in towards the next braking zone. Well, Pollard here, he'll know it's really only one way into the opening corner as we look back for the rear of the DCW racing car that leads this race. He just cannot afford to go deep in any of these corners. He goes deep, and that may be it in terms of he'll find himself out of sorts and don't be able to come through. But as they come through turn number 3, that's the one thing about Mikey Pollard this season: he's never made a mistake, or if he makes mistakes, they are minor by comparison to what they could be. And as he comes on through turn number 4, we can see there Delmont just having to wait, and Pollard really responding well here to the pressure as they head over the bridge and through turn number 6. But meanwhile, further down the field, I'm hearing that Martin Tilling's had it off track and has lost P10 to Darren Eels. That's now down to P11. It is Tilling trying to recover further as Delmont there using a bit too much of the dirty air to his disadvantage and going on to the grass at turn number 8 through 9 they go. Pollard here definitely really enjoying that clear air in front of him. It just gives him all the space and time of day to be able to set the car up in the run to each and every corner. But as he comes up through turn number 12, we look back to Shane Piggott in a bit of a lonely P4 at the moment, albeit I think he'll feel as though there's a bit of company coming for him in the form of Ian Manners and Adam McNally, P5, P6 behind, albeit as they make the way down the start-finish straight. Piggott would stay clear of them. He won't want to get dragged back into a battle for P4. He'll want them to focus on battling for P5. But heading in towards the opening braking zone from them, we do look back to Matthew Addy at P7 here, and again, a bit of a lonely race for Matthew Addy at the moment for NXTGEN Racing, as we are looking at him making his way in towards turns 1 and 2 here, and currently P3 in the Pro-Am class, and trying to make some headway after Ian Manners, but not on the same pace as the drivers in front of him right now. And I believe Matthew Addy may have had an off on that previous lap, and that is accounted for the fact he has been on average 1 to 1.5 seconds slower than the rest of the field. But as he comes out of turn 3 into 4, meanwhile we look from here back up to Pollard, your race leader, as he comes on through at what is their turn at number 6. And as they dip their way through turn 7 8, notice just again Adam Delmont really pushing hard as he makes his way through 7 and 8, but with the amount of force he's putting behind the wheel in terms of trying to get that lap time to get as close as possible, I think Delmont maybe started to overdrive slightly here as he makes his way up towards turn number 12. I think he's trying to get that gap down for this specific corner, but in pushing so hard, what he's also doing is leaving himself very open to making those mistakes, and particularly at turn number 7. But meanwhile, coming out of the final corner, it is going to be Manners versus Piggott in the run down towards turn number 1. Piggott on the outside, and McNally has caught up. He's caught up very quickly as McNally as they make the way towards the braking zone. And what, are they going to go 3 wide? Surely not. They're going to try it, and as they come into the sweeper, oh goodness me, and it's a turn in there for Shane Piggott, who catches the car. And how on earth Piggott's been able to keep that car on circuit, I will never know. That is credit to the Ace of Spades racing driver. But I can tell you one thing, Ian Manners there, well, you can imagine at a junkyard when a car gets put through a compactor, I think Ian Manners thought as though he was being put through a compactor by 2 Clios around him, and well, in the end Adam McNally takes the place on the inside, absolutely bold and brave as they come. And meanwhile Ian Manners puts himself in between the 2 pros, but as they make the way through turn number 6, my eyes, I just cannot believe it, ladies and gentlemen, and the fact that all 3 of them were able to survive that, and Shane Piggott in particular, will credit to him. If he's able to catch a car like that, he may want to consider being a fielder in cricket, because he can catch a ball superbly, I would imagine. But as they make the way out of turn number 9 and up towards 10 and 11, and of course I mentioned of cricket with Australia holding on to the Ashes currently, and the Ashes season kicking off in the near future, will make his way in towards turn number 12. We go from cricket to drivers being stumped right now, and I can tell you one driver who feels as though he's being stumped. It's Mikey Pollard's aspirations to lead this race without any problems behind, as we see our leaders making their way into turns 1 and 2, and as they do, Delmont's going to be very bold here, and Delmont right now is getting dicey. He's looking around the outside of turn number 2, and well, that that is risky, but if he can carry the momentum out of 2 in towards 3, Delmont have all the room he needs on the inside here, albeit I think Pollard will try and chop off his nose, but Delmont's going to go all in here on the brakes, a bit of rubbing between the two of them as they come out of 3, out towards 4 they go, side by side, but Pollard's got the nose ahead, but Delmont says, I can get back in there again, and as they clear 4 and out towards 5, 6 they go, over the bridge and in towards the right hand and side by side all the way through, but the problem is Pollard's on the outside here and the road gradually tapers into 7, and as they come through, Lee Holmes looks up the inside and Pollard loses the lead of the race for the first time today, and as he comes in towards turn number 9, Lee Holmes is all over the back of him as they make the way up towards turn number 12. Now we ride on board here with Lee Holmes and the ATEC Racing drivers going to probably be saying right now, what can Delmont do that I can't? And as he tries to look for the move into Ricardo corner, he gets way too close to the exit of 11, and Pollard there essentially acts as a rolling roadblock, albeit he'll be aiming to do that by default, but the thing is Holmes had all the pace in the world, but he just got too close too soon, and as the ATEC Racing driver now tries to play his bets behind Pollard into turn number 1, Delmont defends on the inside, things are definitely heated up right now as they make their way into the braking zone for 2, and as they come through, the ATEC Racing driver here decides to go nice and deep on the outside, he's going to cut back, lock up for Pollard in P2, and as they make their way out towards turn number 3, Holmes getting closer and closer here. Well, the tempo is rising. I think the tempers are starting to flare as they make their way through the right-hander, and Delmont holds on to lead this race. But goodness me, we are in for a treat. If this is the way it's going to be to the very end of the checkered flag in race number 2, I can only imagine what race number 3 is going to be like when these guys are cutting their way through the field. But as they come through the right-hander return at number 6, Holmes right now falls back, so does Pollard here, and everything reaches a degree of status quo for a brief moment as they make the way on through. But notice again, Delmont really, I think in fact it's just Delmont's line through turn 7, he's struggling to hit that apex rate. He's got to be careful of those track limits as they make the way out towards turn 12, because he picks up too many of those, it will be a drive-through penalty as they head up towards Ricardo corner once more to complete the 9th run of this circuit under race conditions. As they come through the left-hander, meanwhile we do look from them back to Adam McNally, and McNally still trying to fight away for P4 here overall versus the runner-up Pro-Am driver, I should say, currently of what is their Ian Manners as they make the way on the start for this straight. And you'll notice that Manners really bobbing and weaving on the straight. He's allowed 1 move on the straight. He won't be allowed more than that, as otherwise that becomes unsafe driving. And as they head in towards turn number 2, McNally looks from the outside to the inside there. It's a nice move from McNally. Manners gets the car stopped, albeit a little bit of wobble there. It's going to be 3 wide on corner exit up towards turn 3. But you can see Piggott backs out there. He decides, no, he's been in 1 3 wide already. He doesn't want to make it another one. And as they come through turn number 3, well, it's going to be Manners who defends. Piggott gets a bit too close to the back of Manners and taps the rear of the car when he was trying to cut it up the inside into 4, but as they head into the braking zone, you can see Piggott again trying to cut back. McNally covers him off, but as they do, Manners is able to hold position for now as they make the way over the bridge. And as we look to the Excite NXTGEN Racing machine, as they make their way through turn 6 and in towards 7 they go. Well, right now Manners fended them off and coming on down and up towards 9, where it's going to be Piggott all on the inside, and Piggott goes for it. He gets his elbows out and says, look, I've had enough of waiting, and Manners is given the opportunity to break away. But I think there Piggott just coming in a little bit too early. He needed it here, not at turn number 9, because it's meant that McNally's just been able to hold the momentum as they make the way through the final corner and onto lap number 11. But meanwhile, we look to the front of the field, and I believe Adam Delmont has taken a slowdown penalty for track limits as they make the way into turn number 1, and Mikey Pollard retakes the lead of this race, and the DCW Racing drivers now got Lee Holmes literally all over the back of him like a bad rash as they make the way at turn 2 and up towards 3. Under the bridge once more they go, and this trio right now, there's no signs of stopping them. Meanwhile, Martin Tinney looking up the inside of Phil McDougall into turn 1 there. McDougall almost losing the rear of the car, and he does look up at the braking, and the CXR Project Black driver there takes the trip to the gravel. Thankfully not to the wall, so he'll bring it back on circuit, but now he'll find himself battling for what is P4 in the Pro class versus Darren Hills, who's just got ahead of him there as they make the way down towards turn number 3. But as they come through, I think Martin Tillins had a bit of an off track at turn number 3 from what I'm hearing, albeit nothing bad has come of it as we understand it. So we look from just towards the bottom of the top 10 back towards the very front, and as they make the way on towards the end of this lap, there will be 4 more to go, and Mikey Pollard right now seems to have found himself a little bit of breathing room as Adam Delmont, meanwhile, after losing the lead of the race only a lap ago, now all over the back of Lee Holmes. And I wonder here whether the focus now for Lee Holmes will turn more towards defending versus Delmont rather than trying to put the pressure onto Pollard anymore, because whilst it's an overall championship they're competed in, if he finishes ahead of Delmont, he gains ground. But as they break the way into turn number 2, well, right now it's going to be Holmes defending hard there on the apex, and meanwhile Delmont looks around the outside here, so Holmes will be pinned onto the inside into 3. Well, it is quite a smooth line to defend here. It's a very tight apex, and Delmont there just simply backs off and decides, right, I can't get down around the outside of 3, I'll look to the inside of 4, get Holmes to go off racing line again, now try and cut it back through 4, and up the hill we go towards the bridge, and Delmont's going to have the overspeed here as they head into the right and kick at turn number 6. He may get this done. It's side by side as they make the way out to turn 6, on towards 7 they go. Delmont on the inside, Holmes on the outside. It's going to be one wide, or is there? There's contact between the two of them, and Delmont is able to right the car there with a little bit of assistance. A secondary bit of contact from Lee Holmes, but Holmes holds the position for now, but Adam Delmont not afraid to go too wide, and well, their cars have definitely right now seen better days, but at the same time, when they make the way on around here as close as this, they're going to be making contact at some point, but they survive it as they make the way out the final corner. Albeit I think Lee Holmes, they're going a little bit deep, and Delmont getting the better run, so it's going to be a drag race down towards turn number 1. 3 to go. Mikey Pollard leads this race by 2.5 seconds and growing now with the fact the 2 pro drivers here are battling for P2, and as they make the way through the left hand, Delmont on the inside, Holmes on the outside. And can Delmont get it stopped in time? Small luck up there in the front left brake for Delmont, but he has got it stopped, and as they make the way out to turn 2 and up towards 3 into the braking zone they go here. And well, I think there will be a brief hiatus in this battling, although we get a phase ball there of the Renault badge over the front of Holmes' car. How close he's running right now as they make the way into turn number 4, and will the Next Gen Racing ATEC racing pair definitely at one another all the way to the end of this race. But Delmont right now will know if he picks up this result, it will neutralise the gains that Holmes made in race number 1, because of course they finished P2, P3, but in the opposite order in the first race of the day, and therefore this is exactly what Delmont needs. He needs to make sure that Holmes cannot gain any more ground in the championship. But as they come out to turn number 9, meanwhile, further back, Adam McNally still fend off Shane Piggott. This is the battle for the final spot on the pro podium as they make the way up towards turn number 12, and also with that P4 overall. But McNally holding firm versus Piggott for the time being as they head in towards the braking zone here for turn number 12. As they come on through the left-hander and up towards turn number 1 they go once more. It's the penultimate lap, 2 to go this time around, and as they head up towards the next braking zone, well, meanwhile we have had Ian Manners fall out of this battle due to an incident earlier on, and that's dropped him down to P13. So for Ian Manners, in fact we didn't see that incident on camera, it's happened quite recently, but for Ian Manners it's a difficult day given the fact that now that is going to severely undermine his championship lead. In fact, it will be that Mikey Pollard will definitely become your prime championship leader after today, unless Pollard has a disastrous race number 3 and conversely Manners is able to turn it around. But it will put Manners in a difficult spot when we go racing for the final time, given he's starting from towards the back of the grid. But as our drivers make the way up the hill and onwards towards turn number 6, we focus in on Adam McNally versus Shane Piggott and jump on board with the Ace of Spades racing driver. And coming down through turn number 7, I do wonder whether some of the damage he picked up from that contact into turn 1 a few laps ago, where it may be costing him some straight line speed or some rotation on the left hand side of the car. So that will be on the right turns where the left tyres will be the bigger focus of the turning motion. But as they make their way down towards turn at number 12 here, we'll Piggott all over the back of McNally as McNally goes a little bit deep there for Recaro corner, gets hooked up on the end. But Piggott there within 2.5 tenths, they made their way down towards turn number 1. Now Piggott speaking about it, and McNally knows that he's going to be at risk of a move from Piggott, but will Piggott dive to the inside? Will he just stay there in the middle of the road? McNally covers him off initially, but says, no, I'll just take the racing line, thank you very much, and Piggott follows him. Lock up in front there, that's Lee Holmes, who's gone very, very deep. Albeit I think Holmes has been able to keep it on the black stuff as they make their way out to 2 and in towards 3, but Lee Holmes pushing too hard. Meanwhile, we are hearing that Phil McDougall has made his way past Darren Hill to P9 overall, and what will be the final spot on the prime podium. But Piggott getting the better run out of turn 3 into 4, and as he goes up the inside, side by side onto Apex there, there's contact between the two of them, and well, they're going to jostle one another around as they come through the King of 5, and they'll head across the bridge, and goodness if it's not over yet, and I think it is now, with Piggott getting ahead. McNally trying to cut it back, but cutting it back to the grass too soon, and well, if he was to cut that any further, he would have got an automated slowdown that he would have had to have served before the end of the race, so therefore he's had to settle in behind, but he won't be pleased how that move was made. But But as they make their way out of turn number 9, meanwhile we look to your race leader, and well, after what was a calm and clear race number 1, he's had to fight hard for it, but he makes it 2 out of 2 overall in the Pro-Am class. DCW Racers Mikey Pollard is your winner ahead of Adam Delmont P2, and then it will be behind the Pro winner, Lee Holmes, who rounds off your overall podium P3, with Shane Piggott taking the final podium spot in the Pro class P4 overall. Adam McNally just missing out on what was the Pro podium there, P5 overall, ahead of Matthew Addy, runner-up in the Pro-Am class, P6 for Next Gen Racing driver, Martin Tinnin P7 there for Tiki Sim Sport, and then it will be Jamie Dory, who very shortly comes to the timeline, holding off Phil McDougall at the line as they come on down. Jamie Dory P8, Phil McDougall P9 there, and your third place finish in the Pro-Am class, Phil McDougall. Mark Sykes P10, when McDougall flashes lights, he knows he's happy with that podium. Mark Sykes rounds off the top 10 there, and then Darren Ills P11 for Ace of Spades Racing ahead of Michael Lease, who takes P12 there for Next Gen Racing, and a difficult second race of the day. And then Ian Manners, how it went so very wrong midway through the race. DCW Racing's driver and that championship leader going into tonight in the Pro-Am class. Well, that championship leader will be falling out of his hands, but P13 ahead of Daniel Fritz, our last finisher, P14. But with 14 starters, 14 finishers, and fantastic racing to boot from start to finish. And I can see a number of you there in the YouTube chat talking about how close the racing was from start to finish in this race. But Mikey Pollard finding a way to make it 2 out of 2. I think he is going to be extremely hard pressed to make it 3 out of 3. But where there's a will, there's a way. And Pollard is the man who can make it happen, with Adam Delmont P2 there, the Next Gen Racing driver, holding off Lee Holmes, making the move count, but couldn't find a way to get ahead of Mikey Pollard in the end. But I would imagine in race number 3, we're going to see things go to their maximum in terms of the intensity. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take you through the race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. Mikey Pollard makes it 2 wins out of 2 then for DCW Racing by 2.2 seconds over Adam Delmont for Next Gen Racing. Close battle for the win from start to finish until Adam Delmont and Lee Holmes started to battle for the Pro win. And in the end, we saw Pollard unable to break away with Next Gen Racing driver in P2 ahead of Lee Holmes at 8 Tech Racing, who round off the overall podium. Ace of Spades Racing Shane Piggott finishing what was a further 3 seconds behind Lee Holmes in the end and round off the Pro podium there. Congratulations to Shane Piggott, with Adam McNally P5 for Next Gen Racing, hold off Matthew Addy P6 and run up in the Pro-Am class, and Next Gen Racing drive being followed up by Martin Tillin P7 for Tiki Sim Sport, with Jamie Dory there P8 for Next Gen Racing, 30.6 seconds off of the race winner. And with that result, that will put him at reverse grid pole, as we're to understand it. For in fact, it won't put him reverse grid pole because 7 cars in the second race today, so Martin Tillin will be reverse grid pole, as I do believe it will now be factored in. And then Jamie Dory at P8, they're just missing out. 10th behind him, Phil McDougall there, finishing at 3rd place of the Pro-Am class and completed the Pro-Am podium of Mikey Pollard, Matthew Addy and Phil McDougall. The CXR Project Black driver fended off Mark Sykes, when Next Gen Racing driver completed your top 10. Darren Hills, best of rest P11 for Ace of Spades Racing ahead of Michael Lease, with Next Gen Racing driver bringing on home ahead of DCW Racing's Ian Manners and Daniel Fritz and Whiskey Runners Racing, completing our 14 finishers, and all 14 starters made it to the checker flag on the lead lap. But that was race number 2, ladies and gentlemen. We've got one more still to come. And well, race number 2 has definitely been an absolutely intense race from start to finish. But can we expect a crescendo in race 3? My gut feeling says yes, we can. We'll be back in approximately 5 to 7 minutes for the build up to the final race of the day. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for our final racer today. It's race 3 of 3 here at Oran Park Raceway in Australia, and what a brilliant pair of races we have had so far. In race number 1, we saw batting at the front of the field, but Mikey Pollard was able to control things with Adam Delmont and Lee Holmes battling behind. But in race 2, it all erupted up and down the field, with the trio we just mentioned battling hard from start to finish to bring home the overall win, and Mikey Pollard making it 2 out of 2 for DCW Racing and in the Prime class as well, but behind Adam Delmont was able to finish ahead of Lee Holmes and therefore undo the damage done to his championship lead from race number 1. And meanwhile, further down the field, we saw the trio of what was Ian Manners, Shane Piggott, and also Adam and Ali battle intensely into turn number 1, and they all survived it, but in the end it would be Ian Manners who would lose out from a later incident that would cost him dear. But now one more race to go, and as our drivers get themselves set, we look to Adam Delmont making his way on around here, and well, we've got night time gradually coming into the circuit as well, albeit it's not going to be in darkness race as we're to understand it, but it will be starting to get dark. That may just make some of those brake markers that our drivers have been using in daylight a little bit harder to see, and you never know what could come with it, also with lower track temperatures. But it's been a brilliant day in Australia trackside, and with our drivers in the warm-up session before they go racing, we do say hello there to GZen High in the Twitch chat, who is absolutely enjoying the race and says this car and track combination is awesome, and I 100% agree with you and Mr. High in the fact that we have seen some absolutely fantastic racing in both races, and qualifying really teed us up for what's going to be a spectacle today, as we see Matthew Addy there taking a bit of liberal use of the track limits. He won't be allowed to do that when we go racing, but I think he'll be very aware of that. And Brash just experimenting right now as to what happens if you do cut the limits at turn number 11, where he's having to serve a slowdown there, and that will definitely upset his momentum if he was to do that in the race itself. But we are only approximately 2 to 3 minutes away from going to the grid for this final race of the day. Reverse grid as well. And as we do understand it, it will be a top 7 inversion with 14 drivers making it to the grid for what was our second race of the day. Albeit I believe we have lost a driver between race 2 and race 3, and therefore we will have only 13 drivers on the grid, which is unfortunate. But at the same time, again, much like what we said earlier, whilst we may not have a large quantity of drivers, the quality out of the grid is absolutely sublime, and we have got plenty still to come here with another 15 laps of racing. And well, can one of our drivers make it 3 out of 3? Can Mikey Pollard make it 3 wins on the bounce, or could we see a new name at the top? And out of Lee Holmes versus Adam Delmont, who is going to settle the score in their favour? And Lee Holmes, the 888 racing driver, knows he'll need to get back ahead of Delmont, as otherwise with 2 rounds to go, that 80+ point advantage that Delmont has over him will only grow. As he heads out to turn number 2. Safety car driver also in the pit lane at the moment. Our safety car has seen a bit of use in race number 1, hasn't seen any use in race number 2, but patiently on standby should we ever need to deploy it. Manual safety car compared to the automated iRacing safety car. But as our drivers here all comfortably set, we do look to Michael Lee making his way across the timeline, and the NXTGEN racing driver really coming unstuck here at Oran Park. The circuit and himself just do not seem to gel too well. For the number 55 driver, I think it's a day of damage limitation today. Well, that sometimes happens when it's a circuit that doesn't just seem to want to come your way. You just got to put your best foot forward and see what points you can pick up, because you never know what can happen over the course of a race. You could see the leader take themselves out of the race by pushing too hard, or just making a silly little mistake. It's happened even at the very best, at the top tier of real world motorsport. Indeed, you only need to look at Formula 1 all the way through the years over the last couple of decades to see drivers who've got it wrong from the lead of the race, but there's been no pressure to do so. But the pressure is on now, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for us to head to the grid. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid this time, unfortunately we're not able to walk you down the grid due to technical limitations, but we can look to the grid here as all our drivers begin to get themselves set. And well, we can see there the lights are on and the ambient lighting gradually coming down ever more so. But we look to the front of the field. In fact, I think it is going to be a full reverse grid here rather than a partial reverse grid. And Daniel Fritz will be started on pole position for Whiskey Runners Racing. He'll have the opportunity to turn everything around from the first 2 races of the day, but can the 31 driver find a way to pull it off? Alternatively, will he find himself under pressure from his peers around him as we do get set. And well, as we look to the helicopter cam, there is Daniel Fritz lined up a bit further back. We look to Ian Manners there in P2 on the grid. The DCW Racing driver here has a shot of redemption in the fact that he will be able to find a way to victory if he's able to pass Fritz and run away with proceedings. But he can imagine that he's going to have Mikey Pollard try to cut his way through the field. But it's time for the lights, ladies and gentlemen, and let's go racing. And it's lights out and away we go for the final race of the day. 15 more laps of racing here in Australia. And as Daniel Fritz gets a good launch, meanwhile we can see Ian Manners as well getting a good start. But both drivers are equal in the run towards turn number 1. Further back, the field are really coming together already as they make their way through the opening corners. And through the sequence they go towards the brakes. We've got a driver straight away. That's Mark Sykes taking an adventure to the tyre barrier. Meanwhile, more drivers side by side going through turn number 2. 3 wide in the midfield there between what is McNally, Addy and Tilling. But as they break their way into turn number 3 now, it's going to be on the inside there from Lee Holmes. He looks at a move. I think that's more defending. Meanwhile, Tilling finds himself very wide on the outside. Martin Tilling rejoins there. All about big feet squeeze very wide. McNally high in the apex curve there, but he settles the car back down before he can launch it and give him excess understeer. As they make their way to the Yokohama Bridge, a much more sedate start to this race. -1 error, as I do believe that Darren Hills is also joined, but we've got a car off there. Martin Tilling being sent astray and to the grass before he can make his way to turn number 7. He won't be best pleased with that. Martin Tilling definitely feeling the pain today for TE Simsport, but as he makes his way in towards turn number 9, still be able to catch up in due course. But meanwhile, at the front of the field, Daniel Fritz of Whiskey Runners Race, he's had a good start to this race, and he continues to lead as we come to the end of lap number 1. As he charges his way down the start finish straight behind him, Jamie Dory and Michael Lee. So they go side by side on corner exit, but Dory immediately getting ahead as they power on down and head up towards the next braking zone they go, with Fritz ahead of Manners, followed by Dory P3, Lee's P4, followed by Addy P5, McNally P6. But as they come in, it's 3 wide into turn 1 once again. They've done it once already today and they try to do it again now, and they all survive it as they come through. And Adam McNally, little bit of oversteer there on corner exit, but he's kept ahead of Shane Piggott, and Piggott's got ahead of Delmont in all of that. Meanwhile, Lee Holmes here makes it 3 wide into turn number 3. Well, goodness me, they're now experimenting with how many cars wide they can go from corner to corner. Holmes tries to get on through, but he can't find it, and then he has to wait his turn as we got Adam Delmont trying to go around the outside of Shane Piggott through turn number 3. My goodness, and well, Delmont right now in a hurry to get a move on as they come into turn number 6. And Piggott, to be fair, may not have the pace compared to Delmont, but he has the defensive nuance. And meanwhile, behind, Mikey Pollard squeezing into the mix, with Delmont being edged wide as they come down through turn 7, 8 and gains another place. The DCW Racing driver there showing its credentials in terms of his championship credentials, picking up a key place overall as he makes his way up towards turns 10 and 11 and through the rise and into the dip they go, bouncing off the curve there at turn number 11 and onto the brakes. Nobody's going to look for a move now, albeit we jump on board with Martin Tilling, who gets very close there to the back of Adam Delmont through the final corner, albeit goes a bit overly deep, and now his gains will be neutralised as they make their way down the start finish straight, because everybody's got the toe of the car in front of us. They make their way towards turn number 1 as they head in towards the braking zone very shortly. And on to the anchors they go now into 2. We can see that everybody lining up just about this time, but with the brakes now starting to warm up. We had a bit of a tracking issue on Darren Hills' car. He's in P12. He's not a lap down, which the timing tower was saying on the previous lap. He's P12 ahead of Mark Sykes. As our drivers make their way through turn number 3 now, we look from the battle for P10 and upwards all the way out towards the very front of the field, and that is Ian Manners, who makes his way up through turn number 6. Race lead. He's found his way ahead of Daniel Fritz off camera into turn 1 on the second lap of the day. Meanwhile, Darren Hills has had to be towed to the pitch due to the incident at turn number 2, as we're to understand it. So that's our first retirement, given the fact we're hearing already from the garage the car is not in a salvageable state. But Daniel Fritz getting a slow run there coming out of turn number 9. Dory Finks back around outside to inside through 10 and 11. But it's a hard one to pull off. It is a single line. You want to straight line the apex is there. To do anything different, it costs you a huge amount of time. And Fritz got a bit deep into 12. I think right now it's a nasty knock to the wall. And the Whiskey Runners Racing driver is going to lose momentum here. And now the places are going to start to tumble as he makes his way up towards turn number 2. Dory will be there on the inside, albeit he's going to try and come back at Dory, but I think Dory will naturally take the position off of him as Fritz tucks back in. I think that's what Fritz needs to do. He needs to get his head down and just focus on our position. But there, Paul breaking into turn number 2, breaks a little bit early in the car and settled on the inside line, and Michael Leach just goes around the outside and makes it look effortless. I can assure you there's a lot more effort in it than it looked on camera. Fritz tries to come back at him, tap on the rear of the car for Fritz versus Leach, but in doing so, Matthew Addy now looks up the inside of Fritz, and it's all going wrong as they come through turn number 4. Contact there between Addy and Fritz. I think it was more Addy losing the rear of the car over the curve of 4, and then the rear coming out and tapping the side of Fritz's car. But meanwhile, McNally, a big contact with Shane Piggott, and McNally sent to the grass. And the Next Gen Racing driver, well, the rivalry between the two of them, it's making me get flashbacks right now to a rivalry similar to Plato and Neil all the way back in the BTCC Super Touring days, because that definitely looked as though it was a bit rough between the pair. But as they make the way through turn 9 and up towards turn number 12, Mikey Pollard just dodging all the chaos around him up to P7 already, and now Adam Delmont behind trying to make even more headway as he goes on to the next lap. Well, I think more so that Adam Delmont at this point maybe just inching a bit closer, and Delmont's going to consider the move here. Well, Pollard is used to having Delmont right in his rearview mirror. He's had all that in race number 2, and Delmont here I think trying to play the long game, which I don't need to fight you right now. We'll fight at the end of the race. Meanwhile, speaking of fighting, Lee Holmes there getting on past Matthew Addy without too much of a fight. I think Addy focusing on running in the prime class as best he can and chasing after Daniel Fritz. Offline then to Fritz. Defend on the inside into turn number 3 they go. Contact there between Fritz and Holmes is turning around, and oh goodness me, well I think a little bit of netco contact between the two of it, and then it's self a chain reaction between the cars as they make the way out of 3 and in towards 4. But for Daniel Fritz and Lee Holmes, it's definitely not the way they want the race to go, and that means that Adam and Nally right now battling side by side with Pollard. We're trying to get the move done here for P6 overall, but Pollard's going to stay in it to win it as they come through 7. Side by side into the right, into left they go, and Manali takes the grass. That will cost him quite a bit of time by default. It may also be a slowdown that he needs to serve at the end of the lap. But definitely McNally there, trying to go too wide of the place, but one wide may have been a bit more preferable at this point of the race. The Next Gen Racing driver doing everything in his power to chase down Delmont, who has found his way past Pollard in the run-in towards turn number 2 at the start of this lap off camera. But as they exit the final corner and go to lap number 6, well, we're not quite at the halfway point yet, so I think a lot of our drivers will be hoping there's plenty more time in this race, because they've all still got to make ground. But meanwhile, you look to your leader here of Ian Manners, the DCW Racing driver, and as he comes on through turn number 2, we look back for the rear of his car to Jamie Dory, the pro leader behind the prime leader, and these two battling for the lead of this race overall as they come into the braking zone for turn number 3. Now the problem at this point, of course, for Ian Manners is he's got to make a full process and make a decision very quickly. Does he want to battle for the overall win for DCW Racing, or does he want to just hold on to his prime lead position versus what will be Mikey Pollard, who's down in P4 at the moment, as we do briefly lose Ian Manners there, and hopefully that's not a sign of something to come with regards to a potential technical issue, because if so, it could be the equivalent of an engine blow in real-world motorsport, and that's not the thing we want from Ian Manners. Right now, we want him to stay in it all the way to the end, to take the championship all the way, as they make the way onwards towards what is turn at number 12, and as they come down towards the final corner here for another time of asking, we'll run the way through. Jamie Dory not quite able to get close enough here, so it's a nasty tap to the wall there for Dory, and I say tap, I think that's a bit of an underwhelming word. It's a nasty smack to the wall. We saw a lot of dust be kicked up, and for Dory, that's how hard he's pushing, but he can't afford to keep doing that, because the more and more he comes into contact with that exit or the right side suspension, particularly that front right tyre, if he hits it close to the wheel arch, that could cripple the car and cause him to have to come into the pits. But coming out to turn at number 2 and in towards 3, we can confirm we've had retirements for Martin Tin and Darren Hills. We started with 13 drivers, we're now down to 11 in this race, and as they make the way on around here still, our 11 drivers on circuit all pushing on hard as we look back to Addy, Delmont, Pollard and Manadi, and Matthew Addy has now been reeled into this group as they make the way through turn at number 4, and as they go over the bridge, we ride on board with the rearmost driver in the group of Adam McNally, and the Next Gen Racing driver here still trying to do everything in his power to gain position. But first, he's got to try and find a way past Pollard, or does he? Can he not work with Pollard? Maybe the full process now that's going through his mind, given that Pollard has proven to be an absolute tough cookie to crack. Was they make the way through turn number 9, McNally, they're going a bit deep, and that's going to cost him even more time with the run wide. Albeit, I think just having to settle himself back down right now. It's only a second to the drivers in front. He can be right there very quickly, given how much they're going to be fighting one another as they head down the start-finish straight. Speaking of that fight, as we look from Addy back up to Addy here. Well, Matthew Addy under pressure from Delmont. Delmont looking on the inside in towards 1. It's on the right. Your picture is Delmont. Addy on the left. And as they make the way into the left hand, lift off and then immediately onto the brakes. Addy letting this one go and wary of Pollard, who's the next driver to come through. And I think this is where Addy will look to start going defensive, albeit Delmont goes a bit deep there at 2. That's going to give Addy the opportunity to come back at him as they head in towards turn number 3, but no way through. As meanwhile, Adam and Nally went off circuit at turn 2 and into the wall. He's had to take the car to the pits. It's been towed. I believe it may be a retirement for the damage picked up. They haven't got the parts to get it repaired, so that's another driver out of this race. And goodness me, they are falling like stones at the moment in the dark conditions here in Australia. But meanwhile, as we jump aboard and look back from the rear of Adam Delmont's car, well, he's got the 2 prams of Addy and Pollard behind, but Delmont there with a slightly poor run coming through turns 7 and 8. That's going to give Addy all the momentum he needs to try and get close as they make the way out of 9 onwards towards turn number 12. But through the right into the left they go, and as they do down towards the braking zone here for the final corner, the drivers making their way to the second half of this race now. Race leader about to go to lap number 9 of 15. Still plenty of laps to be turned here as Delmont holding Addy and Pollard at bay, and Pollard now started to inch closer to the back of Addy. But I think Addy will be eager to try and get a bit closer to the rear of Delmont. But as they make their way down, we can see there Pollard taking a bit of a sneak peek, trying to see if there's a way up the inside of Addy, trying to get into Addy's head. Addy having none of it as they make their way through turn number 2. And rolling the cars through the left into the right-hander of turn number 3. Will they stay as they were for now? And this is the point of the race, of course, where it now becomes a bit more of a psychological game, in the fact that everyone's calmed down, everyone's found their pace, they've got their brakes and tyres firmly up to temperature, and they've got themselves clocked in. You really need to get into the head of your rival and try to get them to make a mistake, and that's where the passes come, when they make even the tiniest of falls off circuit, or even just miss their apex, and with it lose 1 to 2 miles an hour in the run to the next corner. But there, as we see Pollard looking on the inside of Addy, a little bit of tap between the two of them, covering turns 7 into 8, and Addy there being sent to the grass, trying to snap the car back together for 8, and will Pollard make his way through, but Addy just avoiding the wall there. Well, definitely a bit of a controversial moment for the pair of them, and I wonder whether that may go to the stewards after the race. But meanwhile, from one DCW driver making ground to another one who's holding ground at the front of the field, the DCW racing driver Ian Manners here, with still 6 laps to go. 4 tenths clear of Jamie Dory, and Dory there right behind him as they make their way to turns 1 and 2 this time around. And onto the braking zone they go. But the problem is here for Dory is the fact that Ian Manners seems to have finally found his rhythm in this third race, and with that rhythm now he is starting to become absolutely infallible as they make their way through the right hand at turn number 3. But behind them, Adam Delmont finding his way past what is Michael Lease, with Lease having an off track at turn number 2 as we're to understand it. So Lease has dropped from P2 in the Pram class to P3, and with that P5 overall from P3 overall, in the fact that he did have both Delmont and Pollard pass him, as there we do see Pollard, and then Lease will be a little bit further behind as they make their way through the camera shot. In fact, there is Michael Lease. So turn 2 coming back to bite the 55 driver once more. We saw turn 2 catch about the most on the opening race of the day. Race number 2, it didn't attack him at all, and now it's found a way to get back into him as he makes way up towards turn number 9 here. But as he comes through the left hand, meanwhile, looking from here to Shane Piggott a bit further down. And the Ace of Spades racing driver here, 1 second clear of Daniel Fritz. Fritz having been passed by him in the run towards turn number 2 at the start of this lap. And right now, Shane Piggott, one of the fastest drivers out there. In fact, I dare say, minus Adam Delmont, who's putting on an absolutely scintillating pace, Shane Piggott is the second fastest driver out there and matching the leaders on pace, if not chipping away tenths a lap. As he makes way out to turn at number 12. Of course, for Shane Piggott, indeed many of our drivers, they'll be cognizant of the fact it is a long way to go towards the leaders, and when you're 18.5 seconds down, as is Piggott, there's not much time left in this race to try and close that down unless the leaders really start to take time out of one another. But speaking of the leaders here and potentially taking time out of one another, that could ring true shortly as they come through turn number 4, and Manners now with Dory very close behind as they make their way over the bridge. We jump on board with Jamie Dory, the Briton, as he comes up through the right-hander, and in towards 780 goes, and we're here trying to set up a bit of a cutback run through the curb to give himself all the momentum up towards turn number 9, and well, he's got the momentum there, just a little bit too far away to try and lunge under braking. But Dory already started to play this game, which is get Manners to get out of line as they come for each and every corner there. And the darkness, you can see Manners almost missing the turn 11 apex and coming in too early, but having to reset the car across the apex curve at short notice. And Dory in the end having to back off through turn number 12. But this is where the pressure starts to build, and when the ambient light continues to drop and you've only got the headlights to work with and you're the lead car as well, which is the worst place to be when there's no circuit lighting. It means that you're lighting up the circuit for everybody else behind you, and Jamie Dory can see the corners thanks to Wes Manners' headlights. And as they make their way through turn number 2, we're hitting that Daniel Fritz has had a moment off circuit at turn turn number 12 and knocked to the wall, and I hope that's not Fritz being forced to come into the pits for damage picked up, but we'll keep you abridged of that. As meanwhile, Jamie Dory here, as close as he's ever going to be to the back of Manners into turn number 4, but the Promise not able to find it there, as Manners having a brief connectivity issue once again, but he is able to settle himself down as they make their way in towards turn number 6. Now will Dory this time go for the same move once again? Will he try and go in early into turn 7? Manners goes very deep, and Dory taps him on the back there. Well, nowhere else to go for the next gen racing car, as the DCW racing machine gets a little bit of a bump along, affecting a speed boost there, albeit with some crumpled at rear aero. And as they make their way out of 9 through 10, 11, Manners definitely now started to struggle at this late stage of the race. He's doing well to stay ahead, but I think with the fact they've got a gap of 1.5 seconds to Adam Delmont, Dory now is trying to give him the hurry up. As Delmont, meanwhile, he has an opportunity to get right back in the hunt for what is the lead of the Pro class, I should say. Alternatively, take the overall lead, as they've only got 3 more laps around to go on to lap 13 and 15. Battles elsewhere around the field seem to have calmed down, albeit Lee Holmes and Shane Pigger are getting a bit close to one another in the battle for P7. We're going to keep our eyes off of that. We'll stay with the leaders now, as Adam Delmont behind continues to inch close, and there he is, Adam Delmont, the Next Gen Racing Drive Championship leader overall, as he comes through turn number 3, and right now looking to try and seize a place. We're hearing that Daniel Fritz has had to come into the pit lane after the damage he picked up on the previous lap, and that may be it for Daniel Fritz as well. We'll have to wait to see. As meanwhile, Lee Holmes trying to go around the outside of Matthew Addy here through turn number 3. Shane Piggott behind, so Holmes has got to be wary of the fact that if he battles this too hard, then Piggott may be able to capitalise. Addy defends on the inside of 4. They come through the apex there, and Holmes goes the long way round, but it's going to be successful as they make the way out through the gearbox onto the bridge. Lee Holmes gets it done for P6. A beautiful move by Lee Holmes, and as much as Addy defended, now he's got Shane Piggott to contest. Meanwhile, as they make the way down, Ian Manners into turn number 12, and Jamie Dory, they're going very deep. He misses his apex entirely, and as they come out of the corner, Adam Delmont's immediately there to pounce as they make their way down the start finish straight, and we jump on board with Adam Delmont as they make the way onto the penultimate lap, lap 14 to 15, and now within 1.5 tenths, they're about to enter turn number 1. Does Delmont go for it? No, he waits. If he's going to go for it, it'll be on the final lap. He's going to give Dory the opportunity to try and make a move on Manners, I think, try and capitalise on the 2 drivers in front of him battling one another as they make their way towards turn number 3. I think that patience will very quickly turn into haste as they head on to the brakes in for turn number 3. 2.5 seconds to Pollard behind. So Manners right now, he'll want to keep these 2 pros between him and Pollard to give himself an opportunity to reclaim some points on Pollard. But as they come out of the right-hander at turn number 4, we can definitely see we're building a traffic jam here. Corner to corner, Pollard is gaining 1 to 2 tenths on average. As they come out of the bridge, on towards turn number 7 they go, but it's completely blind now over the crest in towards 7. And particularly if you're the leader just in your headlights, you're going to see that turn 7 apex the last possible minute as they make their way through 9 and through there. Well, Dory got too close for comfort into 9. He's had to back off. Delmont now being squeezed here towards the rear bumper of Dory. And as they head in towards Recaro Corner, going on to the final lap very shortly, we can see Delmont there taking a bit too much apex curb, and will the car kick it around? That was because he had to cut all the speed out of the car, turned it in and ended up dipping a tyre on the inside of the curbing. But white flag is out. It's the final lap of racing at Oran Park today, and as they make their way towards turn number 1, the top 3 separated by only 6 tenths of that as they break their way to turns 1 and 2 one more time. Manners defending as hard as humanly possible as they come through the corner, but as they make the way around, Mikey Pollard now within 1.5 seconds of this battle. He's closing and closing fast. Meanwhile, further back, Shane Piggott on the inside of Matthew Addy into turn 1 and 2. Piggott on the brakes there. It's going to be a bold move from the Ace of Spades Racing Drive, but he's not afraid to make moves into turn 2. We've seen that today most certainly, and he gets the move done there versus Addy trying to chase after Lee Holmes. But meanwhile, we come back to your leaders, ladies and gentlemen, as they make their way over the Okoma Bridge. Only half the lap remaining here as they come down towards turn 7, 8 and up towards the line they charge, but as they do, Dory's got to look ahead and rearward now, and that's the pressure that's building. Plus also Ian Manners there continue to have some slight connection issues, and hopefully they're not going to deprive him of a potential overall win, and I believe it would be his first of the season as they make their way through turn 10 and 11 up towards the final corner. Manners just needs to defend this, but Dory's going to go around the outside, but as they make their way out, it's going to be a drag race to the timeline. Who's it going to be? Oh goodness me, it's all gone wrong, and all 3 drivers coming together. And with that, Mikey Pollard is going to take the checkered flag, your winner, and makes it 3 in a row for DCW Racing. And my goodness! Well, you could never have predicted that. Jamie Dory P2, Adam Delmont P3, Lee Holmes P4, and then it will be Michael Lees P5 there as he takes the trip to the grass. Shane Piggott P6, and then it will be Matthew Addy P7, and completing the prime podium of Pollard, Lees, and Addy. And then Ian Manners in the pit lane, I believe with a retirement affected due to damage picked up P8. Mark Sykes comes on through the final corner to take what we understand will be P9, although we wait for confirmation from that as he comes to the timeline. Mark Sykes in, I think Ian Manners has retired, and with that loses a lap in the race, so Sykes will take P8, and it'll be Daniel Fritz who'll be your last finisher on his home soil today as he comes up towards turn at number 12. But as he makes his way on through there, we're going to have to take a look back at what exactly happened to the leaders on that final run as Fritz makes his way on down and completes our finishing order here in P9. Ian Manners will be P10 and classified as finished, but meanwhile Adam and Annie Martinson and Darren Ills, your 3 retirements, who I think will be classified as non-finishers. They did not complete half the race, but a very interesting end to the racing, it must be said. And as we take a look back at the replay, will give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and we will be able to see what exactly happened and the checker flag when it came out. As we take a look back here to the battles, they made the way through the final couple of corners where it was Ian Manners leading at this point in the race. They made the way on through, but then coming out of the corners, you can see how close it was. They made their way onwards towards what was turn number 12. And Manners at this point having to go defensive versus Dory, who looked around the outside and then going in towards the braking, zone. It would be a drag race to the finish line and a bit of contact there, I think, between what was Delmont and Manners. A bit of sideswipe contact, and Dory in the end being turned towards the wall given the way it played out, and it was just Mikey Pollard who was able to avoid all the carnage and just steal away the win with only a couple of meters between the checker flag and where the leaders all had the instant. Well, my goodness, what an end to the race. And with that, let's take you through those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. Well, after another 15 laps of brilliant and dramatic racing here in Australia, Mikey Pollard making it 3 out of 3 overall and in the Prime class, and firmly taking control of the Prime Championship there for DCW Racing with 2 rounds to go. Half a second clear of Jamie Dory for NXTGEN Racing. I think the number 13 driver will be absolutely incredulous as to how it all ended with a P2 rather than the win, but he was finished ahead of Adam Delmont, who was a further 3 tenths behind. It's a NXTGEN Racing at 2-3 on the overall podium behind Mikey Pollard, and then at P4 there for Lee Holmes at ATEC Racing, who completes the pro podium of Dory, Delmont and Holmes. Shane Piggott 3 seconds off there in P5 for Ace of Spades Racing, and perhaps the boldest and bravest driver of the day there, and definitely has earned himself a key rest going into round number 7. And then Matthew Addy P6 for NXTGEN Racing. The best part of 22 seconds clear of Mark Sykes, his teammate, round off the prime podium of Pollard, Addy and Sykes. Daniel Fritz Whiskey Runners Racing at P8, almost a minute, well, just over a minute behind the race winner, but still carrying on to win it. And then P9 for Ian Manners there for DCW Racing, ahead of Michael Lees P10, albeit I believe that excursion off the road come the checker flag may have led to him picking up a post-race penalty, an automated one, to see him finish P10. But I think his results may be reinstated after the race. Adam and A, P11 for NXTGEN Racing, our first of 3 retirements and classified as non-finishers, with Martin Tillin at P12 there for TQ Sport, having no luck today in Australia, and Darren Ills for Ace of Spades Racing, having a difficult end to the day, not able to complete more than 2 laps. But what a way to wrap up the racing, ladies and gentlemen. And indeed, it is delivered at the historical Oran Park Raceway circuit, and we miss it so. But one thing we always do miss in these broadcasts is post-round interviews, and we'll be back in approximately 10 minutes' time for a potential interview or 2. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And today we have one volunteer who's opted to interview, and it is none other than our triple overall and Pro-Am class winner at Oran Park Raceway from DCW Racing. It is Mikey Pollard in the number 73. And well, we'll be hearing from him very shortly on what has been a day of potential dominance within class, albeit not dominance at the front of the field, having to battle hard in all three races, but a surprise victory in the third race of the day when it looked like it was all going to be on course for just a straightforward P4 finish and second place in the Pro-Am class. But as he gets ready to join me, I look forward to hearing his perspective. It has definitely been a challenging day all the same, and mixing up from the very best in the field. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, I think Mikey Pollard will be joining me as of now, and as he does join me in the interview room. Mikey, can you hear me? I think we may be having some slight technical issues, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, hold on. Are you there, Mikey? I'm doing very well. Thank you. But more importantly, how about yourself? A brilliant drive today in all three races. Well, in fact, I should say last week. And absolutely unstoppable in the Pro-Am class, but battling with the very best in the Pro class as well. They kept you busy.
Yeah, it was a hell of an evening of racing, actually. Really enjoyed myself. I like Oran Park. I tend to be quite quick there over the years, so I was quite hopeful going into that round, to be honest. And I did a little bit more practice than normal. I don't know if that's cheating in this league, but I'd spent the evening before running a few laps, so I was quite confident. Yeah, and some great battling with Adam, some great battling with Lee, and a huge dose of luck, really, thrown in at the end there as well.
Oh, most definitely. And I don't think practice in the NXTGEN racing leagues is illegal. As they say, practice makes perfect. But speaking of that practice, you immediately delivered in qualifying in what was a session which always saw you up towards the front and in the end taking pole by 400. It was down to the wire.
It was tight, wasn't it? Yeah, I think the secret there was, I don't know if you noticed, I came in about halfway through for a fresh set of tyres. I found with the Clio there after a few laps, the pace tends to drop off a little bit, and coming in for some fresh tyres, as long as you sort of nail that first and second fastest lap, you can find a little bit of time there. So that was the key to the pole position there. But it was incredibly tight with, I think, Lee, wasn't it?
Oh, most definitely. It was by a small margin then, but you managed to pip Lee to pole. And I have to ask, what is it about this circuit that you particularly enjoy? Because it's such a fast-flying circuit, albeit now a housing estate, but we've gone back in time for this round.
I don't know, really. It's clicked with me. I think at some point I used to race GT4s a lot, and I did many laps in another league a couple of years ago. In a GT4 league, driving the Porsche Cayman, and I think I did so many laps. I managed to find the little nuances of some of those corners, lots of trail braking into like turns 2 and 3, and over the hump and over the bridge as well. So. Yeah, just practice. Really, that's what it is, Paul.
Oh, indeed. And, well, that practice really proving critical. But we did see in race number 1 a bit of a slow start for yourself off the line. It was a drag race in towards the kink of 1. But you seem to have that covered off.
Yeah, you know what? I like to follow more than be in the lead. I tend to get a bit nervous and possibly underdrive a little bit when I'm in, excuse me, when I'm in the lead. So, yeah, there was a couple of close calls at the start of those races, but I defended quite robustly, but fairly, I think. In the second race, I did lose the lead to Adam, and I think I was lucky that he got a slow down. Otherwise, I may well not have caught him after that, I don't think.
Well, indeed, and speaking about that second race, it really carried on from where the first race left off, albeit we saw both Lee Holmes and Adam Delmont get into the fight with yourself. And of course, there's the dynamic whereby you're battling for the Pro-Am Championship lead ahead of your teammate Ian Manners, but then you've got two pros who are battling for the overall championship win come the end of the season, and you're right up there as well inside the top 5. What's your priority in that? Is it just how many places you can take, or is it the Pro-Am win is always the priority?
I'll be honest, I don't really think about it that much. I'm thinking about just the race win. I don't really, consider whether I'm fighting against pros or Pro-Ams. So it's just on the day, trying to get the race win. I've had a couple of podiums on previous weeks recently. Finished second to Adam a number of occasions, I think. Just trying to get an overall race win was my priority. And yeah, amazingly managed to get 3.
Oh, indeed. And then going into race number 3, we saw you started from the back of the field with a full reverse grid and gradually started to pick your way through, but a little bit of lady luck shining your way, not just at the end, but also at the start with a couple of drives falling off the circuit.
Yeah, I was playing it safe to begin with, stayed at the back, tried to stay out of trouble. A number of other drivers, had issues, bit of contact, a few people dropped out. To be honest, I wasn't quite as quick as the likes of Adam getting through the traffic. So yeah, I was never really going to be in a position to fight for a podium unless, something crazy happened at the end.
Oh, most definitely. And then coming on to what happened at the end, coming out the final corner, P4 overall on the cards and runner-up in the Prime class to teammate Ian Manners. And then the 3 cars in the front all seemed to have a bit of a mating moment with the wall.
Yeah, we had a good look at the replay afterwards, and it was a fairly healthy dose of netcode on Ian's rear right rear right corner that sent him into the side of Jamie, I think, and took out Adam as well at the same time. So it was unfortunate for all 3 of them. And kind of fortunate for me that, in fact, I had been a little bit slow, so I was at least a couple of seconds back, and I had plenty of time to react, and avoid it all, and didn't get collected myself. But yeah, I think Ian's internet had been a bit dodgy that whole race. He'd been flashing in and out, and then the netcode finally got them all.
Oh, most definitely, and being at the right place at the right time to capitalise. And going into the 2 remaining rounds with the results you've been able to accrue in Australia, it means you're now Prime Championship leader and fighting for a top 3 finish in the overall championship. How are you feeling for the upcoming races in round number 7?
Not a big fan of Kota, I'll be honest. So not sure how that's going to go. Don't think I'm particularly quick there. That's this weekend, isn't it?
It's Silverstone this weekend, I believe.
Oh, it is? Okay, sir. I better get practice in Silverstone then. Yeah, just take it one race at a time. I'll have some fun and just hope my teammate Ian has a bit more luck this time.
Oh, I have to ask, how's the rivalry down in the paddock between you and your DCW racing teammate?
Oh, it's absolutely fine. We have a bit of a laugh together. He's a hell of a bad run of luck. I don't know if you noticed, but in the second race there, he was up to P4 and he actually had a wheelbase disconnect, which was the reason he finished, towards the back in race 2 there. So not just that incident at the end of race 3, but some really bad luck in race 2 as well. So to be honest, I wish him all the best if he manages to get into the race this Friday with his new equipment.
Well, fingers crossed for him, because we'd love to see the 2 of you battle hard for the Prime Championship all the way to the very end. But just before we do let you go, Mikey, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Just the whole DCW crew, to be honest. Great team, great teammates, great crack. Having a great time racing with them in some endurance races recently and against each other in various leagues. So yeah, just the guys at DCW.
I'm glad to hear. It's such a great atmosphere down in the team, and it shines through as you talk about the team and the spirit. Well, with that, thank you for joining me in the interview, and congratulations on being P1 in all the sessions today, whether it was qualifying or all 3 races. And we do look forward to seeing you out of the circuit at Silverstone in the coming week.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Bye, mate.
Have a great evening.
Cheers.
So hearing there from Mikey Pollard in the Prime class for DCW Racing, taking pole position and translating it through into 3 race wins back-to-back. Races 1 and 2 are having to dig in hard and fight hard, whereas race number 3 not able to make as much impetus through the field compared to his pro peers around him, such as Adam Delmont and Lee Holmes, but at the same time being in the right place to capitalise on what was an unexpected ending due to a netcode contact between Ian Manners and Lee Holmes, which in the end also saw Jamie Dory turn to the wall. And with all that and the way it unfolded, it was a surprise, it was a shock, but that is the way it all played out in the end. And well, it was for Jamie Dory and Adam Delmont. I should correct myself a second time, but for Mikey Pollard, it really is a championship that seems to be coming his way. And talking about the misfortune of his teammate Ian Manners with a wheelbase disconnect that explains what happened at the end of race number 2. And then in race 3, all that contact right at the end of the race really putting what was the stake in a difficult day of racing in Australia for the Prime Championship leader. But now the shoe will be on the other foot with Pollard leading going into the final 2 rounds. And could we see the momentum stay that way, or will it invert the other way? Well, only time will tell at Silverstone in round number 7. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from our one and only interviewee of today, and that is Mikey Pollard from the 73 car for DCW Racing in the Prime class. Congratulations to him, and thank you to him once again for joining me in the interview room. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid for one of our future series, whether it be, say, single maker racing, or alternatively extending all the way through to GT3 or prototype class racing. We've got plenty of leagues ongoing and upcoming. Well, firstly, you can check us out our official website, and that will be found at www.nextgenracing.co.uk, and as our website appears on screen, it is the home of clean and fair sim racing for all. We have been hosting leagues for over 16.5 years on PC and console. We have some of our most successful series, such as the Powermax Racing E-Series, which was run in 2020, and also the Brain Tumor charity event, which saw Jensen Button and James Baldwin take part. But we're all here to support a friendly environment in which you can go sim racing at every level, from amateur and rookie all the way through to the very elite. And currently we do have the front wheel drive Fridays Clio Cup series, and also the completely free to enter series, and you're going to be seeing more of that this coming weekend, the Formula Fixed FF1600 series. But we also have upcoming, along with the remaining rounds of the NXTCC Season 3, our equivalent of the British Touring Car Championship, brought to you on iRacing. We also have the upcoming GT3 Championship starting at the end of June, and also in early July the return of the Proto GT3 Championship, albeit with a focus on endurance racing for an all-new season that runs over the summer. So there is plenty to come, plenty of racing, and we've got more planned for 2023, and we'll let you know about all the other upcoming series in due course. But if you don't want to go to our website, you can alternatively, if you're on Facebook, follow us at our Facebook group, and that may be found at www.facebook.com/groups/NextGenRacing. And there, well, if you want to stay in touch with us all and see what we do both on the virtual circuit and also the real circuit, where a number of our admins and staff are being real-world marshals and also real-world racing drivers, well, you can find out all the details there on our Facebook group. But speaking of the details, ladies and gentlemen, it's all going to be in the details next time out for round number 7 at the Silverstone National Circuit. And whilst the racing will occur on what will be Friday, the 26th of May, well, we're bringing it to you as if it were live on Wednesday, the 31st of May. It's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, and we're only a limited number of corners and extended straights. Every mile an hour is going to be key on batting it onto the brakes into the next corner. But who will come away at the home of British motorsport, the winner, and carry the championship momentum into the season finale? We'll find out then. But until then, we have been Next Gen Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.